Kevin's our first guest. We good, Ace? Okay. All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started. If you would like to grab a seat, make yourself comfortable. There's tables back there if you need to get some work done. Otherwise, come up here and join us up front. Cool. Thank you all so much for coming today. I'm Diana. I'm the host of the Rehash podcast. For those of you who are not familiar with Rehash, it's the first community-owned podcast, meaning all of our podcast episodes have been published on-chain. And people who collect those episodes become our community members and our governance members as well. And so all of the guests that we've had on the podcast were actually nominated and voted on by the community and not just asked to come on by myself as the host. And so anyone can go and collect an episode. We're published on Pods, so it's pods.media/rehash. You can collect any of the episodes there. They're all free to collect. You just pay gas and you become a governance member, and then about every 3 months or so, we hold guest elections. You can nominate anybody you want to hear on the podcast, and then we vote our guests on. So today we have 4 really exciting podcasts for you guys. They're just going to be really short, 20 to 30-minute conversations. If you guys have questions at any point, this is a small, cozy group, and so I'm more than happy to take questions for our guests from any of you. If you have questions, just raise your hand, and I'll give you a chance to ask your question to the guests. So first up, we have Kevin Owocki from Gitcoin, as you all know. Kevin, you want to come on up? I also just want to let everybody know, I also just want to let everybody know bathrooms are in the back room back there, so if you need that, please help yourselves. There are drinks in the coolers back there, and then we have lunch coming at noon. Okay? Awesome. Cool. Oh, and gotta say thank you to Last for sponsoring this event. You can read all about Last on that banner right there, but the best way is go back there and talk to Andy Boyan, who's raising his hand. He's got a ton of merch for you back there. We have awesome t-shirts for everybody and other merch. And then you can talk to him all about Last, and he'll tell you all about it. Awesome. Okay, so we're good, Ace. Okay. Feeling good?
I feel good, yeah.
Okay, well, everybody, welcome to Rehash. Welcome, Kevin. This is your first time here.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you. Long-time listener of the Green Pill podcast. Kevin Owocki, for anybody who doesn't know, who's probably nobody, is co-founder of Gitcoin and also the podcast host of the Green Pill podcast, which is an excellent podcast if you like public goods and things of that nature especially. And then also author of the On-Chain Capital Allocation Handbook, which is also a great read. If you guys haven't checked it out, you can find it online. Is there an easy website for people to access?
Yeah, it's at allobook.gitcoin.co. And you can download it as a PDF, or you can order a $20 print copy. I recommend the print copy just because we put a lot of money and time into creating beautiful visuals for it, and it really just pops when you see it not on a screen. But yeah, allobook.gitcoin.co.
There you go. Perfect. So I want to talk to you today about on-chain capital allocation. I know you've probably talked about it ad nauseum at this point. The angle that I'm most interested in is how do we allocate capital on-chain fairly and democratically? So I myself have been part of various grants rounds from both a participant perspective as well as a judge, I guess, for lack of better words. And one thing that I've heard with these grants programs a lot of is that it's the same 10 people that are receiving these grants from all these protocols. And how do we get past that and award capital to newer projects that are also very deserving, but, you know, for whatever reason, aren't getting on the radar of the people that are distributing the money?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question on a couple different levels. And I guess like the first level that I'll start with is maybe just going broad by defining on-chain capital allocation, and then I'll actually answer your specific question. So on-chain capital allocation, that's just 3 words, but it's a little bit of a mouthful. Capital allocation is just the decision of where you want to spend financial resources. So when you're paying your bills, you're allocating capital. When you're pumping gas, you're allocating capital. And then at scale, grant makers and governments, their full-time job is to allocate capital. And on-chain capital allocation is basically doing that and making that decision on-chain. And then you can leverage the superpowers of blockchains in your capital allocation decision-making process, which means that you can do more scalable, more precise, democratic capital allocation than has ever been possible before, because we can remove the intermediaries, the central power brokers that used to make the decisions. So I think that on-chain is going to do for capital allocation what the internet did for communications, which is massively rewrite the infrastructure for it. And it's trite to say, but we're early in this, where it's the second inning of doing on-chain capital allocation. So I'm mindful that where we are today and what we actually see on-chain is not as momentous and powerful as what we're going to see over the next 10 or 15 years as on-chain primitives eat the world. So that's like my general frame is like it's early, like genuinely it is early, not like you're early to an alt layer 1. Like this is early to something that's truly in the frontier. So that's the design space and sort of like my framing. Your specific question was how do we move from from like 10 grants just going and grant farming and getting all the money?
Yeah, and actually just to kind of follow up on what you've said so far about on-chain capital allocation generally, what is like the special piece about allocating capital on-chain that you think is going to change how we've been distributing money?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the most broadest and abstract sense, we can now program our values into our money so we can build economies that reflect our values. By the way, that's a double-edged sword. It means that we can build beautiful democratic capital allocation things, and it also means that we can build hyper Ponzi schemes. It just depends on what your values are. That's the double-edged sword. But more generally, I think that the power of this will be leveraging the primitives of blockchain to build more democratic ways of allocating capital, removing powerful intermediaries that became central power brokers in these ecosystems, and now we can make the median members of these ecosystems decision makers for capital allocation. And you see that in Gitcoin grants and quadratic funding, and you also see that in Optimism's badge holder experiments, where they're making more and more badge holders that allocate capital over time in the Optimism ecosystem. Those are 2 tangible examples of how this is going to change the world, or at least change how we on-chain allocate capital on-chain. And then from just like a very visceral level, we're kind of all printing these community currencies, these governance tokens. And so we have these giant treasuries that can be allocated to the ecosystems that they're being built. So there's just like a big set of capital that is not going to allocate through banks and through the traditional infrastructure. It's going to allocate on-chain. So there's like a bunch of potential energy in those treasuries. So anyway, TLDR, there's a bunch of money that we can allocate through these treasuries, and we can now program our values into our money, and that's the design space that really gets me going.
Yeah, amazing. So then going back to my initial question about how do we get past this, distributing capital to the same 10 projects across all of these different protocols, how do we get past that and identify newer projects to give capital to? And I've been in a lot of these conversations, and I think a lot of what I've seen and what I've heard is we just don't, it's hard to trust that these newer players who nobody has ever heard of before are not scamming us, right? Even with robust KYC processes, like people have figured out ways to get past KYC even. So it seems like there's no surefire guarantee that we ever will know that we're giving funds to a legitimate project versus a scam. And I think that makes people scared to even take that risk at all. And that, to me, that's like the main reason that I've seen why we seem to be distributing capital to the same 10 projects over and over again.
Yeah, that's a great insight. So I guess the prompt is, how do we move from just allocating capital to the same 10 projects to dispersing it more widely?
Yeah, and I guess if you have any other observations too, in addition to my observation about why that seems to be the case.
Yeah. Well, I think the answer to your question is easy. You just use Gitcoin. We'll shill. We got 10 minutes in, and I haven't shilled you Gitcoin yet. So, no, I mean, I think it's an interesting design space, and I think that there's a couple ways to solve it. Before I try to talk about solving the problem, I'll just sort of frame the way that I see the problem. There's this thing in economics, it's true in all economic systems, called the Matthew effect, and it's colloquially known as the rich get richer. But it also applies to other things besides just money, like fame and status. Like Ashton Kutcher is getting famous faster than I am, and there's like a runaway effect there. And so basically what you see is a concentration of fame and wealth and like clout. It's like this runaway game in any economic system. And I think that, now that we can program our values into our money, I think the great opportunity is to like reverse that gravity and like create an equilibrium where that's not the case. And I think that, some ways that I'm excited about doing that are, and I'll just rattle off a couple and we can pinch and zoom on any of them depending on the audiences and your interest. But quadratic funding, I think, is really neat because the median human in your ecosystem gets to decide where the capital goes. We can get into the specifics of how that works or doesn't work according to your point of view. So quadratic funding is one way to do it. I also think that what Optimism is doing with the badge holder experiment is kind of an interesting way of spreading the risk of finding out which projects are creating impact, but also like spreading the risk out to the badge holders. And one of the things that they've recently done in round 4 of Optimism is that everyone's familiar with the voting experience where you add projects to cart and then you distribute capital according to the projects. And one of the things that happened in round 3 was that there was a bunch of fatigue because you had to evaluate 700 projects. And so what they said is, and also it was this beauty contest where, if you recognize the brand, you'd give them money. So what they did is they said, no, we want to make this more like metrics driven and like what's actually driving growth for the super chain. And what they did is they made it so that you could add impact metrics to cart, and then the system would distribute the votes to the projects on the basis of the metric that was being created. So basically, like, how much gas did they consume? How many unique addresses did they bring in? How many new users did they add in? So the badge holders were allocating to 800 projects at a time by only adding a couple impact metrics to cart. And I think that's a really interesting way of allowing projects that are standout projects that are creating impact to get a piece of the pie. So yeah, quadratic funding is one way to do more democratic capital allocation. Impact on-chain impact metric voting is another way of doing it, and I think that how to spread around the power and the wealth and the decision-making risk in these ecosystems is going to be a frontier that we're going to continue to push over the next couple of years. And one of the things that I've started. Actually, I'll just end there, and if you have any comments on that, then
yeah. Well, I would love to. I think quadratic funding, right? People are probably familiar with that. That's been talked about for a while. I would be interested to hear more about the badge holder stuff from Optimism, and I guess, like, what are some of those impact metrics that you think are most useful or most important? Because I think it's an interesting conversation because I think, like, in the Web3 space, we're a little averse to KPIs and metrics, and I'm curious to hear from your point of view what some of those, like, the most useful impact metrics are.
Yeah. Well, before I answer your question, just a heads up to John and Marcus, our food is here from DoorDash if you want to go greet the driver. Thank you.
Where was the signal?
Yeah, we talked beforehand about me sending some weird signal out to them, like doing this on stage, but in order to signal our food was here.
We got it on video, that's all I wanted.
Yeah, but then I was worried some weirdo out there might think that I'm like signaling to them and not to my friends that the food is here. Okay, sorry.
Impact metrics.
Impact metrics,
yeah.
Which ones are the most important?
Yes, yeah.
I think that it really depends on what you're trying to do. And so basically, like, we have a bunch of different customers that are trying to build different things. And if you're an L2, you probably care more about block space consumption and bringing more users to your chain. If you're Eigen layer, you probably care about what AVSs are doing, creating the most TVL or the most innovation on Eigenlayer. If you're a DEX, then maybe it's about TVL, or a DeFi project or a DEX, it's about TVL. I think that for Gitcoin, one of the things we're doing is we're using Gitcoin to build Gitcoin. And so one of the things we've been trying to do is build people who build on Gitcoin's protocol. We reward with Gitcoin's protocol GTC, which is our governance token. And so just like the answer is unsatisfying, but the truth is it depends on what you're trying to build, what the metric is. But there's a weird twist. And it's this thing called Goodhart's Law. Goodhart's Law is basically another law of economics that says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. And so that's basically a way of saying that, if I were to incentivize like TVL, to use an example, and airdrop tokens on TVL in an ecosystem, then basically the farmers are going to start trying to game that metric, and they'll just put in enough TVL to get out the money from the system, and then the system has to evolve past that over time. So like all metrics are gameable in like a Goodhart's law kind of way. So I think that like when we talk about metrics, we need to see the forest for the trees, that we want to do metrics, but we don't want to over-index on any one metric, because when we make it into a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Yeah. What does that look like in practice? Does that mean, staying silent about what metrics are being measured in a grants round? Does it mean continuously iterating on those metrics? What does that look like?
Yeah. I actually wrote a post on this, and so I'm so glad that this is the first time I've talked about it on a podcast. The title of the post was "Public Goods Funding Must Be Evolutionary." And so basically the argument you can make from first principles is that all of these systems, if we're going to do metrics, and if we're going to do metrics-based public goods funding, and we have Goodhart's Law, then by definition, we have to keep evolving the metrics that we use over time, unless we just want it to be Goodhart's Law to death, or like what people would call civil farming or grants farming out there to death. And so first off, I just want to pause on that moment for a second, because for so long as I've been in crypto, people have been immutability maxis, like we're going to deploy this thing and I don't control it anymore. And there's beauty in that immutability and that inability to change it. But here we're making an argument from first principles that these things must evolve over time. And I think that's actually really profound, that these things are going to have to keep evolving. That doesn't mean that they should be able to be capturable. We should still take the lessons of immutability in them, but we should make them evolutionary and agile. And it's getting away from the dogma of Web3 a little bit of just like pure immutability. But anyway, that's like some broad framing and what I thought was like a profound point when I first thought about it. But to answer your question about how do we get past the gameability of metrics, you can choose metrics that are hard to game, e.g. there's no profit motive to game them. You can rotate metrics over time. So if my metric in Q3 2024 is A, then next quarter it can be B, then it can be C, then it can be D, and then maybe I'll like randomize it or something a little bit like that. You can make it into a black box. Also, zero knowledge proofs are a thing, and we could do that. And I think a combination of these things is the way to prevent it from being gamed. So that's what I think that we're going to see over the next 5-10 years as these things become more sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back then to where we kind of started, another thing you mentioned is how do we, going back to this idea of like, let's not have the same 10 projects get funded over and over again. Part of that is diversifying or being more strategic. I don't know what it is about, like putting the people in power who are deciding where on-chain capital is going. How do we, like what strategies do we have for that to make sure that the people who are in power are people that we want to be empowered to be deciding these things fairly?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what Optimism has done, where they started off with only a handful of badge holders that knew the founders and knew the foundation, and they started doing like a word of mouth thing where if you're a badge holder, you can invite another badge holder. And so, it was always badge holder based voting, but they went from tens of badge holders to hundreds of badge holders, and they networked out in their network of trust. And then, of course, you have to have an anti-collusion policy where you can't vote for projects that you personally benefit from, and you have to enforce that over time. I have some friends and people that I consider that are good people that got kicked out of being an Optimism badge holder because they voted for a project that they financially benefit from. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that that's one way to keep the badge holders accountable, is having an anti-collusion policy and then to progressively decentralize over time. It's actually one of the coolest examples of progressive decentralization out there, that Optimism has gone from just tens of badge holders to hundreds of them over time, allocating capital and retro funding. I think that's true progressive decentralization.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, progressive decentralization, I think people have done it in a number of different ways. Some have been more successful than others. What have you seen to be some of the most successful strategies for that? Or maybe even talk about how Optimism went about doing it, if for people who aren't familiar.
Yeah. Gitcoin itself has had its own progressive decentralization journey, and we could get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But the example that comes to mind for me is again Optimism and what they did with the badge holders. So the badge holders are basically the people who get to allocate capital in the retro funding round. And in the first couple rounds, there was just tens of badge holders that were making the decision. And then they basically had a way that you could invite other people to become badge holders. And so the number of badge holders has grown from Optimism round 1, 2, 3, 4, up to be 700 people or so. So I think that that's been an interesting journey in progressive decentralization of capital allocation. And the other thing that I think is sort of interesting is, like, you don't have to go all in off the deep end on one direction of decentralization over time. The retro funding stuff is just one campaign that they're doing. There's also foundation grants at Optimism, and Gitcoin is also working with Optimism on this thing called the Sunnies, which is going to be sort of like an awards ceremony for Optimism ecosystem. And what I'm really starting to see is a lot of ecosystems decentralize not only the amount of badge holders they have in retro funding, but decentralize the ways that they allocate capital in their ecosystem. So I think that in 5 years, everyone's going to have a QF round and a retro funding round and a conviction voting round. And it's going to be in the plurality of those grants programs that there's going to be a decentralization in capital allocation mechanisms. And I mean, that's the future that I see. And I think it's really a beautiful one, because plurality is anti-fragility and it's anti-capture, and it's also a diversity in how funds are distributed. And what I'm trying to do is make Gitcoin into a multi-tool that can. Gitcoin Grants in the past was just QF. It was just a screwdriver. Gitcoin Grants 2.0 is a multi-tool. It's multiple capital allocation mechanisms for your ecosystem. And that's where I think the future is going, is not only a diversity in who makes decisions, but a diversity in ways that we make decisions.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on retro funding?
Retro funding is good. Yeah. You want to go more nuanced than that? Like, what else do you want to know?
Well, I think that there have been some complaints about the way that some retro funding rounds have gone. What would you say is the right way or the best way to run a retro funding round?
I place a near 100% discount on Twitter armchair quarterbacks and their criticisms of these things. Like, they're just, not only are they clout farming, but they're also, like, they weren't in the room when the decision was made about the design criteria, and 99% of the time they haven't read the blog post that explains it. So I put near 100% discount on uninformed opinions. So specific to the criticisms of retro funding, I think that one of the ones that sticks out to me, unless you want to offer a criticism, and then I can sort of either respond to it or dismantle it, but like one of the biggest ones was the criticism of going from retroactive public goods funding to retroactive funding.
Yeah.
Is that one to pinch and zoom on, maybe?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so the criticism is basically like, oh, Optimism told us that they're all into public goods, and then now they're changing it to retroactive funding instead of retroactive public goods funding. Does Optimism still care about public goods? Is that a fair framing of the criticism?
Yeah. Essentially, people were just upset that the projects that ended up receiving the most funding from that tended to be big projects that already had money, and that the capital wasn't being distributed fairly to smaller projects that deserved it.
Does this VC-funded project commit public goods? A couple reactions, and by the way, like, I don't speak for Optimism. They're a valued partner to Gitcoin. Jung and Carl and Ben, I remember back in 2018 talking about public goods and how that needs to be imbued into everything with them, and I just know that their hearts are in the right place. I mean, at least the founders, and they were. Optimism, back when it was called Plasma Group, was the first non-Ethereum Foundation funder of the Gitcoin grants round. So I don't speak for Optimism, but I deeply value their perspective, and I think that they're like, to me, like a spiritual partner in this journey of trying to fund public goods with crypto. So like, anyway, TLDR, I'm not a neutral observer here. But a couple reactions. A lot of so the criticism is like, why did you fund this VC-funded project in the public goods funding round? And like, my hot take, I know you have a hot take session with Disruption Joe later. My hot take is that VC-funded stuff can be a public good. And a lot of these things are a double-sided market where one side of the market is a public good and one is a private good. Look at Ethereum. It costs money to write to. That's not a public good, it's a private good. But it's a public good to read from. It's a state of consensus of the world. That's the public good. So it's a double-sided market where one side is a private good and another side is a public good, which I think is like, you know, kind of profound and like really beautiful in some ways. Like we're building something that serves the interest of the public and harnesses finance in order to do that. Another reaction I have to Optimism changing from retroactive public goods funding to retro funding is that the public good, like the debate of is this a public good or not, I think has really lost its way. Gitcoin recently changed its mission from build and fund the open web to fund what matters. And the reason for that is that I was getting pulled into all these technocratic discussions of, is this a public good? Is this not a public good? And I'm just tired of it because it's the wrong question. It also creates like, the word public goods creates a technocratic barrier to participating in the discussion because you have to be an economist. Like I have to corner you at a party for like 2 minutes and tell you what a public good is for you to even have an opinion. Which like some of you are laughing because that we've had that conversation as recently as last night. But our mission is now fund what matters, and that's much more visceral to you. Everyone knows what matters to you, and I'm of the opinion that if we help people fund what matters and public goods are the most important thing, then that'll naturally rise to the top. So it's like, unask the question is the response to the Twitter armchair critic about public goods funding. And then, you know, the other thing you said was the same 10 projects keep on getting money. I think that that's sort of like a separate project to solve from like the public goods criticism, but we can get into that next if you want to.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah. So basically the problem is that the same 10 projects keep on getting funded by these different funding rounds, and they're kind of like hopping from thing to thing.
Right.
So my first react. Yeah. We don't like concentration of funding. Yeah.
He's spoken.
For the remote audience, there's some new entrants to the audience, and there's a dog here that's guarding the Rehash studio. So that's
keeping us
fun.
all safe.
I think that it really depends on what the goals of these programs are and whether they're meant to build ecosystems or if they're meant to fund the Ethereum public goods, and how much these ecosystems are trying to welcome new participants to the ecosystem versus just like, are you planting sprouts or are you turning the sprouts into giant oak trees? And I think that those are two different problems for two different types of grant programs. Like, you know, like Lefteris from Rocky is a friend, and I know that he's in every grant round because, you know, I follow the space. And like, I think Rocky is a good public good for the space, so I don't think it's a problem that Rocky keeps on getting funded, except when it prevents new entrants like people who are joining in the 2024 cycle from getting capital because it's going to someone who's already established. And I think that for that, what I think that it's important for ecosystems to do is to put out pools of capital that new entrants to the ecosystem can draw from. And one of the things that we've started to do in Gitcoin rounds is that we have basically we've decentralized the way Gitcoin rounds run, and now it's not anyone in the Gitcoin core team that's running the community rounds. It's people who make proposals for rounds on the forum. And one of the things that I think is really cool is when people have onboarding and education rounds that they pitch back to Gitcoin that are specifically designed for new entrants into the ecosystem. So you're not competing with Lefteris, you're not competing with Preston Van Loon from Prismatic for the same capital. And so it sounds like an easy thing to do, but a lot of these ecosystems are really risk averse. They're really afraid of giving capital to the wrong people. And if there's a reputational risk to writing a $5K check to someone who turns out to be in North Korea or turns out to be a scammer. And so I think that like we can either go out on the risk curve make it less political capital risky for people to run those rounds, or we can solve those problems with verification and impact measurement and stuff like that. And I think that that's where the ecosystem is going to go. Is we just need to have people who are willing to take a little bit of risk with their political capital and go out and fund new people. And then we also have to get better at funding those people, the ROI with that money. So yeah, it's an exciting design space though, and it's such a rich design space because there's so much capital that can be deployed here. And I mean, it's almost a meme at this point where we're going to get the next billion users. So it's something I think we're going to solve in the next couple of years.
Yeah, bullish on that. I think the thing for me is, while there definitely is a risk, like you said, and obviously nobody wants to be in the position of writing a 5K check to somebody who turns out to be North Korea, but I also think if we don't go out on a limb and take some of those risks, then we'll never learn. We'll never learn to get better at KYC. We'll never learn to make better impact metrics. We'll never improve if we're not taking any risks.
Yeah, I agree with all that, except I think KYC should die in a fire, and there'll be better ways to verify things that are on chain.
Yes, reputation, decentralized reputation identity. Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, I think that I have more conviction that KYC is fundamentally broken than I do about what's going to solve for it on chain. The biggest problem I have with KYC is the surveillance apparatus that's built around it, and the fact that our KYC providers can't keep our identity documents safe.
Yeah.
But I think that there's going to be on-chain, zero-knowledge ways of doing reputation proving. Gitcoin actually was an early innovator in this space. We built this thing called Gitcoin Passport, which was meant to basically prove that you're not a Sybil, or at least provide some conviction that you're not a Sybil without compromising your private details. So stuff that's directionally headed towards that, I would like to see. And, on-chain primitives for an on-chain world. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We have time for maybe one question from the audience, if anybody has a question for Kevin before we let him go. Yeah.
So with all of this stuff in the grants rounds, like a lot of the times I kind of feel like the developers are doing this impactful work. These grants rounds kind of, in my opinion, create this, they have to go back to the well, they have to go back to the well, they have to do all this marketing of themselves in order to receive certain funding. And largely it seems like a distraction from the thing that they're actually trying to do. Are there ways that we can break out of that cycle that they can spend their time more effectively doing the thing?
Yeah. Could the audience hear that, or do we want to repeat?
Good question. I'm going to repeat it back. So the question is essentially, when new projects are applying for these grants rounds, they have to keep applying for the grant round, keep applying. That takes out a lot of time from the time that they could be spending actually building the thing that they're then, instead applying for all of these grants for. So is there a way around that?
Yeah, I think that this is a flaw of quadratic funding. And, this is part of why Gitcoin's going multi-mechanism. Is quadratic funding is great at some things, but it's also got some drawbacks. And one of them is that you have to relentlessly shill your stuff. And also it creates this thing that we call the Keynesian beauty contest, which is just basically a way of saying that the most public-facing work is what gets funded and not the people who are washing the dishes in the back or building the plumbing underneath of it. So I think it's just like a flaw of quadratic funding. And Gitcoin grants rounds, if the proposal passes, I think are going to move from just QF to being retro funding, and we're going to do conviction voting and grant ships and all these other mechanisms that I think will explore different ways of rewarding people that are creating impact. And one of the ones I'm most excited about is impact metrics-based funding. Despite all the drawbacks that we talked about with Goodhart's Law, it really is a good way of just making it so that if you create impact, then you get rewarded for creating that impact. And a lot of it's behind the scenes. It's not about how many Twitter followers you have or how much you shill. So none of these, anyway, to zoom back out, none of these tools or mechanisms are perfect, but they are all complementary to each other. And I'm not I try to be a mechanism pluralist, not a mechanism maxi. We're building a Swiss Army knife, or like a toolbox of different tools that you can use to create on-chain ecosystem growth or fund public goods. And you think about fixing something in your house, like you don't just use a screwdriver. You use a screwdriver and a plier and a hammer, and the tools are complementary to each other in that way. And so what I want to see these ecosystems doing is quadratic funding and retro funding and grant ships and dedicated domain allocation and all these different types of things. And each of them will have their flaws and drawbacks, but also their benefits. And one of the benefits that I think, to John's point, is really important is to just get funded for doing the work instead of making noise about doing the work.
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Owocki, for the time. Where can people find you? They want to talk to you later, follow you.
Yeah, if you're here IRL, come say what's up. I'll be out by the food trucks later. I am Owocki on Twitter, and you can find me there. You can check out the Green Pill podcast at greenpill.network. That's where we do deep dives on all of the stuff that is interesting in the realm of capital allocation and regenerative crypto. And I'll be at DevCon, so I hope to see everyone there.
Awesome.
Thanks so
much.
much.
At DevCon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Okay, everybody. Our next panel is going to be with Spencer Graham and Nick Naraghi from Hats. Did the food is here. Food is here, so if people want to go back to that corner and grab something to eat and then come back up here, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. We're going to bring up another chair. Is good? Okay. Okay, awesome. So we just need one more chair and one more mic.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. We're just, every day, we're out here. Do you want me to move down at all, or is that good?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Let me grab this. Okay, we can get spicy if you want.
Why not?
We got a little spicy yesterday, so I just keep it rolling.
Just be yourselves.
Yeah.
We're spicy.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I have that hat too. Oh, I should have worn it. I think I left it.
I'm really sick of it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you look at the doc?
Should I look at it now?
No. You need anything to drink or anything before we?
No, I'm a little hungry, but I'm definitely not going to try to eat anything
Oh, okay.
before we get into it.
All right, all right. Looks like a lot of people are pretty hungry.
Yeah. I feel like, for me, I don't, my digestion is really sensitive. So if I, try to eat something and I'm directly onto a meeting or like this, my system crunches and I don't actually digest anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. I probably err on the side of not eating during things that I need to be alert for.
Alert?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
yeah.
Definitely, there's a nice rest and digest element there. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nap time.
yeah. Food coma hits fast.
Oh, that's why I usually just eat fruit till dinner.
Oh, like every day?
Most days.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, because if I do deep work session in the morning, then I'm on calls all day, and I'm like, but anything else I eat is not going to get digested.
Wow. I'm not quite that extreme.
What's your strategy?
I don't really eat much fruit, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I don't think I digest sugar very well. And even natural sugar. So I try to stay away from most of that. I think I just go I do a lot of just protein and veggies.
Eating for breakfast?
Breakfast I just eat eggs.
Eggs. Every day?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Just straight eggs, or do you have
Scrambled.
scrambled? Cheese? Chives?
I cook it with black vinegar and ginger.
Oh, okay. Okay. My own roommate Kim.
Really? Oh, okay.
She loves it.
Most people are like, what?
Well, yeah, where is that? Have you always cooked like that?
It's, my mom made it
feeling good. My voice is a little showing the effects of the evening.
Did you guys go out last night to the party?
It was really
How was
fun.
it?
Yeah, it was like very chill, but also fun. Good vibes.
Nice.
Yeah. Really good space with lots of different places to hang out and like switch up.
Yeah. Nice.
It's really great. Latest I've stayed out in a very long time.
How late were you out?
I think I went to sleep at 4.
How are you here right now?
Because I said it.
Staking commitments.
There it is.
Yeah.
I only have one request, that we make an announcement that people should save some food for the poor podcasters.
Oh. There should be enough to go
I'm
around.
not worried.
I kind of want to go ahead and get started. We're already running a bit behind.
Yeah, I have to
so-
leave at, it's not a problem for any of our stuff, but I have to leave around 2 to catch my flight.
Oh, okay.
When's the holiday session?
It's
Scheduled
supposed to
for
start
1.
at. It's scheduled for 12:30. It's
So
probably going to
probably-
be 1. Yeah. Okay.
So there's one in the
Yeah, I think it's DeFi Beats. Or, is that right?
What?
Is it DeFi Beats?
Yeah,
After
after you.
this.
Yep. DeFi Beats and Jonah after this.
Oh, and Jonah, that's good.
Oh,
yeah,
also,
so-
I have special meals for our hot panel, our hot ones panel.
Oh yeah, I'll eat 2 pieces.
Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. I was just going to tell everybody.
4 broken legs.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
It's like a little bit, I think, right?
Yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be,
Oh, yeah.
thank you for
Oh. Yeah.
advocating for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. Aaron, he's like totally hospital.
Yeah. No, I figured this would be his thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
He loves that's what he does is like he does like consulting with various projects and stuff. He like loves doing that stuff.
He's sharp and he has so much knowledge like, about the whole industry.
Yeah.
Real deep knowledge, not just like cursory read.
Deep knowledge with a just like vibe of having fun with it and fucking around is like that's exactly what I hope everybody can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're putting together a good crew.
It's a good crew.
Proto DAO,
Yeah. Just need more diversity.
Yeah,
but same with them. I mean,
things to work
honestly,
on.
it's the same problem with MCON, right? Like MCON is all dudes, and I think it's just because MCON is like really like OG people who happen to be all dudes. But nowadays there's like a lot of women, but they're not coming to events like MCON. You know?
I don't think we're doing worse than a lot of other projects, but that is still not good.
Yeah.
I was like starting the recruiting process for Maddie and
Jackie? Yeah, Maddie would be great. She just loves optimism.
I know.
Free
I
now.
like want to think about. We have to think about like the resource part of this, but like she'd be an amazing like good ecosystem.
Yeah, she wants to do DevRel. She wants to do DevRel. Like that's what she loves to do.
Super sharp and really great.
Like she left optimism because she felt like she wasn't doing DevRel anymore. She was doing like B2B.
I know. Talking about she's interested. I don't know what it's going to look like, but she's like when things settle down after let's chat. So
I'm a big advocate for Maddie.
she's
I give my hopes up.
she's super great.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're about to get started. So if you're still in line for food, if you've got your food, if you could come back and join us. If you're in line for food, please stay there. Keep getting your food. But we're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute.
This wouldn't be the first time I lose to brisket.
Yeah. On attention. We gotta get spicy. We gotta get spicy. Get the people going.
What's the right orientation for these?
So just bring the mic close up to you as much as you can.
Is there like this way or this way?
I think just like this, like the top facing you. I think.
Okay.
We'll confirm.
Oh, we'll get a check.
Yeah. Spencer, did you get a chance to look at the doc? Okay.
I can do it right
perfect.
now.
No,
That's what I
don't.
said. She's like, no.
Okay.
We did not get the questions in advance. Tough crowd.
You guys are competing with brisket. So.
I know. It's challenging.
We have to wait for Ace to get back.
Cool.
Anyway, so. How's our mic sounding? Is this set up right? How everybody is? Yeah, it's good?
Check,
okay,
check.
perfect.
Check. Test.
And then are we good to go, or are we waiting for Ace to get back? Okay. No worries.
That's cool.
Also, guys, if you could, feel free to take photos, videos, whatever, because I always forget to do that at these events, and then I leave, and I'm like, I don't have a single photo or video from it. So take as many as you'd like. Tag us on it, Rehash Web3, or tag myself, DDW Chen, and I'll repost and love to get some. Thank you, guys. Ace, we good? Okay, awesome. So this is our second panel. Welcome. We have Spencer Graham and Nick Naraghi joining us from the HATS team. These are 2 out of the 3 co-founders of HATS Protocol. They were both previously on Rehash. Spencer was on all the way back in season 2, episode 4, which was from June of 2022. And then Nick was on shortly thereafter in season 3, episode 6, which aired October of 2022. So definitely go back and listen to those episodes, both great. When Spencer was on the podcast, that was actually before HATS Protocol was even a thing. So you won't hear us talking about HATS at all in his episode, although I do think he alludes to it a little bit. So it could be interesting to go back and re-listen to how he's alluding to HATS and then what HATS is today. And then Nick's episode was, I think, right when HATS, I don't know if not launched, but after you guys had already started working on it and established HATS as a thing. So it would be interesting to go back and listen to those episodes and just hear how you guys described it back then and how it's evolved over time. So today what we're talking about with you guys is DAO design. That is really your wheelhouse. You've helped so many DAOs design their organization structure. You've seen how DAOs have gone south. You've seen DAOs that have succeeded. You've really been around in the DAO space for so long. Both of you have, with Raid Guild and DAO House and other, OG DAOs. So you've seen it all, and I'm just excited to get your collective wisdom about that today.
Amazing. Let's do it.
Yeah, stoked to be here. Let's do it.
So the first thing I want to lead with is I'm just going to come in hot and say, why is it that DAOs are so disorganized and chaotic today?
You want to go first?
Yeah, and I'm cognizant of having to hold back some of my hottest takes for later.
Yes.
But maybe I won't do that. I think one way to think about this question is that there's this supposed, and at least to date, real trade-off between actual decentralization, like actual resistance to capture and resilience, a trade-off between that and actually getting shit done, being effective in accomplishing the goals of the organization. And organizations that have been calling them DAOs over the last number of years have taken a wide variety of approaches, but if we simplify and kind of squint, we can look at them in terms of 2 big categories. One where they're decentralization first and figure out how to get shit done later, and one where they're get shit done first and figure out how to decentralize later. And I think the reality is that neither really works. What we need to figure out is how to meet those 2 in the middle. Where I come from, the part of this space that I come from is the decentralization first, figure it out later, or at least that has been how I have come to think about that. And where a lot of the thinking about what HATS needs to be comes from is trying to figure out how we can re-inject effectiveness and clarity and organization and structure into a situation that is decentralized first.
I don't think I'm specifically answering your question, but that dichotomy or that trade-off is really like at the heart of so many of the problems that DAOs are facing today, and why so many of them are struggling to like grasp and like actually sustain the ability to get shit done.
Yeah, I think that provides really useful context. I'd love to hear too where you're coming from, Nick, in terms of that.
Yeah, so I might blow your mind because I haven't shared this idea with you yet, but we've looked at like the two axes of efficiency and decentralization or capture resistance. And this actually goes back to like each of our like core theses coming into this space. Spencer wrote this amazing piece called Anti-Capture. You should definitely read it if you haven't already. It talks about action phases and like how to create organizations that are truly capture resistant. And my original thinking and piece that I wrote was about the efficiency parity hypothesis, or the point where DAOs will actually become more efficient than traditional organizations. It basically, those are the two axes that we're trying to like optimize on the curve of those two axes, efficiency and decentralization. So my come from here was decentralized autonomous corporations, AI managed companies. How do we make like a much better way of coordinating that helps us get things done 10 times better, 100 times better than a traditional company in a network format? And that's what I got excited about in DAOs originally. And it feels like we're just breaking through. We're maybe crossing that threshold of like, well, this DAO can operate as efficiently as, a company.
Yeah, so then if we think about sort of like the DAO life cycle, right? And there's different ways to look at this. Like Spencer said, you could either look at it as like we start decentralized first and then figure it out later, or we start centralized and then progressively decentralized. But the framework that you guys think of as the most effective framework, what does that DAO life cycle look like? And what is like the most organized way of thinking about it that creates more efficiency, still gives us that decentralization that we're after, but reduces the chaos that we've historically experienced in DAOs?
I think there's a kind of really clear core primitive, which is operational delegation or constrained delegation. When you have a surface of decision-making in an organization, that group of people can select amazing leaders, experts to take on that decision on behalf of the whole, and they have accountability that actually keeps them aligned with the organization. And you do that as a fractal scale all the way through the organization. That's the core thing that I think HATS is enabling, and also that DAOs have needed. Because when you're just doing decision making as a all token holders top level governance surface, it's a very, very costly mechanism for making decisions, and it's not really that good at making most decisions. You get convexity on all the decisions across a stakeholder group that doesn't necessarily have a lot of context about what the best thing to do is.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Only that there's not really a concrete answer to your specific question. Mm-hmm. We are all still figuring this out, and I think what we've been collectively getting a lot better at recently, finally, is understanding some of the principles like Nick just shared that are really important, and understanding them in a way that's not just fuzzy but is really concrete, and we can start to measure and play with and manipulate them with better and better on-chain tools and frameworks for thinking about this and actually experimenting with hypotheses, not just throwing shit at a wall.
Yeah. What are some of like your most compelling hypotheses right now that you're testing out or that you feel most bullish about?
So one thing that I and a number of us are really bullish about is like strong accountability mechanisms. And you can think about this like staking some asset, whether that's a financial asset or whether that's some sort of like concrete tokenized version of reputation or basically a token of some kind, in order to have the privilege to do certain kinds of work or to get a role with outsized power or outsized access to resources or outsized responsibility in an organization. That is definitely not the only way that this should go, but I'm really excited about playing with that kind of primitive that is uniquely enabled by blockchains and smart contracts. I'm especially excited about that because it opens up the the population of people that we can bring into some level of trust in our organizations. We don't have to rely on, if that works, we won't have to rely solely on who we know or like our sort of web of social relationships. We can tap into the global marketplace or the global talent pool much more with much more confidence, because we have this strong form of accountability. And so there's some very interesting experiments I'm excited to run and to do with everybody.
Two quick examples here. So when Spencer first sent me the architecture diagram for HATS protocol, it had a penalty in it. So there's a piece that got removed, but this is like coming full circle with the idea that you can stake in order to become eligible to get a hat or to get a role. And the two examples that I think are interesting here, one is in Raid Guild, where we first prototyped this mechanism. We had an internal project called Availability and Commitments. So Raid Guild is a freelancer collective, basically a DAO of sovereign individuals coming together to get project work done. Shout out to Raid Guild. And sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, one person who's on a project of, say, 4 people doing client work together just totally disappears. They don't show up on Discord anymore, you can't reach them, and now you have to figure out how to fill that role. So creating a stick and not just the carrot of compensation was a prototype that we did. So, okay, you're expecting you're going to make about 2 ETH from this project. Why don't you put up 0.2 ETH, and if you disappear, then we're going to slash you. So not only are you not going to get paid, you're also going to lose that ETH that you staked. And that prototype went pretty well, but it was before HATS existed. What we just did in the ProtoDAO, which was really cool, was that as people participate in the HATS ProtoDAO, they earn reputation points, basically. They're non-transferable Moloch DAO shares. And people were able to, in the last season, season 3, stake 100 points that they had earned, which is how many you get for doing your first season, to basically autonomously create their own role. So we had, I think, 8 or 12 people who said, I'm going to make an additional commitment to the work that we're doing here as an ecosystem. I'm going to put this stake up to say, if I don't do the thing that I committed to, you guys can slash me. And there was a very kind of subjective way of looking at, okay, did this person participate or not? But I felt like that staking experiment went really, really good.
The first half of it has gone really well. The first half of it being, it allowed us as the ProtoDAO and frankly us as Haberdasher Labs, which is still really in control of the ProtoDAO, which is why it's called ProtoDAO, not a real DAO. It allowed us to be much more confident to give the ProtoDAO stewards the agency to create their own roles without constraints from us. Of course, we were helping and guiding them think through what might make sense for them, but it gave us the confidence to just let them go do what they thought was going to be valuable for our ecosystem. The second half of it, which is the evaluation and the kind of judgment of did they actually fulfill the responsibilities that they committed to when they staked and created the role, has been a little bit fuzzier. It's a pretty small and high trust group already, so that hasn't really been a problem. But I do think if this broader experiment of strong accountability and staking to get roles is going to work, we're going to have to figure out a way to do it where the slashing mechanism is not something that is captured by some individuals or is actually going to be a legitimate mechanism. And that is let's just say that's a large area of research.
As somebody who's part of the ProtoDAO and has participated in this staking of my proto rep to create my own role, I guess this is also probably a good time. Do we want to tell people about roll call?
Yeah.
So what I staked my proto rep to do in the HATS ProtoDAO is to help them launch a podcast mini-series. So we're going to be launching it through Rehash, actually. It's going to be called Roll Call. And we're going to be launching that in the upcoming weeks. It's going to be a 6-episode mini-series. We have a different guest coming on with us every episode. People that you will recognize, some people in this room right here. And we're going to be just diving really deep into the various aspects of DAO design from different angles of reputation building, accountability, trust, all of these different aspects, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so stoked. I mean, these conversations have been so fruitful and like have helped synthesize ideas and like share them, and I'm just so excited to do more of that with you.
Yeah, for sure. Because we just had this conversation yesterday. It's like still top of mind. We recorded an episode with Trake, who's back there in that corner right there. Hi, Trake. But this like idea of reputation and trust, which you guys have brought up already, is like really top of mind for me right now. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you think about building reputation and trust within, let's say, the Hats Proto DAO, or how you've seen other DAOs approach this, and various ways, like effective ways that you've seen other DAOs approach it.
Ooh, reputation and trust is a gnarly beast. We have been one of the characteristics of reputation and trust is this is a hugely or highly dimensional kind of concept or thing. Reputation is not just like one opinion that you have about one other person. It's 800 opinions you might have about maybe up to 7 billion people, or probably more like 200 people. And that is incredibly complex and incredibly dynamic. And it's also, right, it's not just static, it changes over time. And so like, we haven't even scratched the surface of how to deal with or properly use reputation and to increase trust. In the Hats Proto DAO, we have just like massively collapsed that high dimensional space into proto rep, which is this like single dimensional thing that we are kind of right now hoping is a reasonable proxy for this like broader, like fuzzier concept of like you're pretty good at being in the proto DAO and aligned with what Hats Protocol is trying to do and creating value for that. But we have a long way to go to really refine that. Excited about what some of the projects that are in the space are experimenting with, and I'm hopeful that something really fruitful will come out of those. But it's going to be a long road, and I don't expect to see like real concrete, like ready for full-fledged like autonomous production for maybe multiple years at the least.
I think one of the things, what reputation, fundamentally to make reputation work, has to be subjective, has to be perspectival. And I worked on a reputation project at the beginning of 2022. We were trying to like build a reputation system builder so that anyone can kind of create their lens on the world and then use that as a basis for evaluating the agents that are close to them in the network that they need to make decisions about. Reputation systems are ultimately like a way to automate decision making about like who to include in a given thing, whether that's a project or someone who you want to collaborate with. I think that we haven't really gotten to the point of having meaningful perspectival reputation systems, and all of the like highly condensed single forms of reputation that you see out there are just not going to get us there. Like credit scores are not the long-term answer. But then also you opened up this question of how do you manage all of this complexity of having multiple different scores, and how do you what is the Uniswap of translating reputation from one context to another through the graph of all my shared connections and things like that. But I would say for what we're doing in the Proto DAO, condensing, we're trying to get ready to be an amazing DAO. So what does that take? We have to build the skills of DAOing. We have to build the skills of interconnectivity, contribution, like making good decisions. So running a coordinated circle at the end of each season and intersubjectively determining, like roughly speaking, who created as much, the most value, I think is a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. What tools exist out there when somebody is thinking about DAO design? What are some of the most useful tools that you've seen that people should be using that can help them operate more efficiently and help them operate better and less chaotically?
There's a little bit of a trick that we're pulling right now because we haven't productized this thing yet. But basically, half of the problem is traditional organizational design. So thinking about what are all the things that you're trying to do? What are all the roles and responsibilities and powers that exist in your organization? What accountability relationships will meaningfully help your organization get things done? And we kept running into this because people would see hats and they're like, oh, this is sick. Like, I want to use hats. what do I do? And we're like, well, just you could use a template, or like you kind of do something like that. And people are like, I don't get it. There's no way I can get buy-in on this. Like, it's going to be impossible. So we designed this workshop that we've been running, which eventually will be something that's in the app. And we encourage people to like also build front ends and experiments around too, because you can do whatever you want. But the idea is basically that we sit down with people, we gather like the full governance surface of what resources they're governing and all the things I just mentioned, and we like put them on a map, and we like move them around a Figma template, and we do some sense making around like approximately what the right org structures should be, and then we turn that into a Hats tree. And once you have the output of that, turning it into a Hats structure is actually not that hard. It's just like translating it into an on-chain format. So I think what's really interesting to me is like, as we start to explore productization of that kind of workshop and Figma template, which is an MVP, we're going to get some really interesting tools and potentially automations and maybe kind of like AI pieces that help to make that really good and really efficient.
We're pivoting to AI.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're pivoting to collective intelligence.
Ooh, collective intelligence. I like that. CI, pivoting into CI. I like that. So what, kind of wrapping this up, what are some of your best tips for people who are in the early stages of DAO design? Bringing it back to where we started off with Spencer saying that he has historically been part of organizations that started decentralized and then you figure it out. Having worked through, years of what you're working through now, what's your perspective now with how a DAO should begin? Is it to begin decentralized and figure it out, to begin more centralized and progressively decentralized, which seems to be sort of the approach that Hats is taking? And just generally, what advice do you have for people when they're thinking about DAO design?
So the reality is that no project ever starts or could possibly ever start fully decentralized. Every project starts with a spark of an idea between one or two or three people. And so that's never something that's like decentralized. But one thing that I think can be really helpful is thinking about the evolution of the organization from this very small like partnership to eventually a broader team, broader ecosystem, broader community, and maybe eventually a full-fledged permissionless DAO, is to think about it less in terms of progressive decentralization and thinking about it more in terms of progressive permissionlessness. And there's a lot that's similar. Like, it's kind of just like a different label for something that's kind of the same thing. But I've found that label to be valuable and helpful because it helps that founding team think about themselves not as a hierarchical traditional company that is going to move along and then at some point going to like explode into decentralization, but instead as starting as a collective, as a group of equals, and slowly pushing out or increasing the size of the group of equals, at least from a power perspective. And I don't think we're doing that perfectly, but that's something that we're trying to do with Hats, with our founding team and our core team and the proto DAO. There's so much nuance to this, and every organization is different, and that's one of the reasons why this is very challenging, and it's one of the reasons why we have, when we work with organizations at Hats, we work with them like we work with them, we consult with them, we go through this kind of workshop process because it's very dynamic and nuanced and different. But maybe, and I think I would bet on this, that eventually we all collectively will land on a set of like organizational templates, or at the very least like organizational Lego blocks that we can start piecing together, and there will be more like use case histories to draw on, much like there has been in the like corporate world over the last 100 or so years, where there's very clear ways to start or things to try. And I think what's important is to have the flexibility in your organizational ethos and culture, but also in the tools that you're using, to have the flexibility to swap things in and out and try new things and modularize your organization. And that's one of the things that I think that sort of we discovered about hats is that it enables that kind of thing.
It's also really nuanced, right? So like anytime you try to go make one of those decisions, right, the status quo is you spend a ton of time synthesizing a structure, and then you put that, say, Amy from SafeDAO just did an amazing job like putting this whole structure together and like putting it in the forum post, and now you have all these people who are talking about it in the forum. How can you possibly have a nuanced discussion about the 20 different roles, compensation structures, accountability structures, specific tools they're going to use in a forum post? It doesn't work. So like I think we're going to evolve. Like what's exciting is to like evolve the ability to have a really nuanced discussion about the right structure for the organization and being able to do that incrementally over time and being able to run those feedback loops faster over time.
Yeah, absolutely. We are coming up on time, and so I'm going to wrap us up here, but these guys will be around. If you have questions for them about like hats, how it actually works, if you want to try it out, set it up, something like that, just pull them, talk to them. I'm sure they'd be more than happy, not to speak on your behalf, but I'm sure you'd be more than happy to speak with them.
Indeed.
About that.
Of course.
Well, thank you so much. Tell people where they can find you, later today in person or just on the interwebs. Where's the best place to find you guys?
I'll be here until about 2 o'clock. I've got a flight to catch, but until then I'll be here. And then on the internets, mostly you can find me at, my handle is Spengrah, SPENGRAH, and that's the case on pretty much every platform, Twitter, Farcaster, etc.
Yeah, come join our community chat. It's community.hatsprotocol.xyz. You can claim a hat and sign a community agreement, and then come join our Telegram and our workspaces. And then personally, I'm 0xNN2 on Twitter, and just DM me. I'll be here all day.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, Anna. Nice.
Yeah.
There's so many people here. This is amazing. It's like MCON Day 3. We snuck it in.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here. There's still more food. There's still more drinks. There's 2 coolers back there. If you want to chat and like the networking spirit takes you over, there's another room out back there that's big. So feel free to use this space. Past there, Owocki and Josh all went back there later. So please take advantage of the space and of the networking as well. After the next session, Sidra will do, like, is that when we're doing that?
Yes. So after all the podcasts are wrapped, Sinjin, who has made all of those awesome MCON shirts that I'm sure you've seen, he's going to be doing a live activation for us right here. So you can, if you brought your own shirt, you can bring it to Sinjin and he'll plaster on some Rehash logos and other designs that he's brought all his stencils with him. So you can kind of pick and choose how you want to design your own shirt. If you didn't bring a shirt, you can grab a Rehash shirt, what I'm wearing, what Andy's wearing, from the table back there, and Sinjin can use that shirt to create it for you. I'm not a dreamer.
Yeah, we also have the MCON 3 merch from Meta Factory. This is like the last chance to get it here, so
Amazing.
get one of those too and get it customized and just make custom one of those too.
Awesome. Thanks, Meta Dreamer.
Last on swag for me, last mention. There's a table of Rehash hats that are the best beanies in the entire world I've ever had.
Attest.
Get one. They're so good.
I attest.
And then there's like glass fidgets and stickers and all that. So please don't make me take it home. Take a fidget spinner home for your kids or put it on your desk. And then if you ever want to talk to you about what class is, happy to chat, of course. So thank you. This is
Thank
so
you.
fun.
Thanks for being here. We are going to roll right into our next podcast since we are running a little bit late. So the next one we have is Jonah, Erlich, and DeFi Beats from
so far. Happy to be here. MCON is like definitely a breath of fresh air versus the typical.
Wait, sorry, what's your name?
Like Piglet.
Oh, you're like Piglet. Okay.
So yeah, definitely a breath of fresh air. Like already kind of like thinking about next year and that kind of stuff. I've really enjoyed the like more organic conversations. The talks are a lot more substantial. They have some substance to them versus like just like. And in the best way possible. It's much more intimate, and I vibe in that situation a lot better with people. I'm not like a big like crowd kind of person. Denver, it's just like you're trying to sell me something, I'm trying to sell you something, and like who can get their picture off the fast, like, or you're trying to just get a piece of merchandise.
I actually think it's funny where a lot of people like to complain about the side event culture at like Denver ECC, but I actually think that I am a side event maxi. Because it creates experiences like this for the conference. Where it's like Ethereum scaled by having a side event layer that L2s can settle on, and Ethereum conference culture scaled by having a neutral conference layer that side events
Consensus, I don't have to invite you.
Are you an Austin area local or?
No, all of them.
Oh, you said all the comments. I thought you said consensus.
Well, yeah, there's one that I just like, eat Denver, I'll get a ticket. But like,
Yeah, it's really expensive.
instead I just
Go to Austin, hang out. Not a bad move.
let's do it.
DeFi Beat said you guys, or one of you, who said? You said you guys are gonna fight.
We were maybe going to debate.
Okay, how do you want me
We'll
to
see where the
lead you? How do you
conversation
want me to-
goes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like if we agree, we'll agree. But if we disagree, we're not gonna shy away from disagreeing. Yeah.
Not really.
Okay. Well, I like the. Yeah, I guess I thought maybe you were going to start with explaining the DAU versus DAO distinction, and that can kind of kick us off. But you can do whatever feels good.
I think that could be a good one, right? Like, what is the DAU? Why do they care about?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have like, why should more people like focus more time on DAU?
Yeah, and that's where I think I might have a spicy retort, and then that might spark a lot more conversation. You want to know my spicy retort?
I'll wait to hear it.
All right.
For my reaction.
All right. It's not gonna be. We're friends. We're not gonna fight.
Maybe we can talk about like how to buy users or why is that targeting all sorts of
That ties in really perfectly with my like spiciness on the DAU distinction. Yeah, like potentially going in the direction of like, should DAOs be founder focused versus community focused? That's kind of spicy. Yeah, like, because if it's going to be an organization, before the organization takes off, maybe we need better. I have the take that like DAO's biggest problem is actually leadership, not that we don't have the right tools to coordinate, right? Like we're working on coordination tools all day. We have the tools, we have the technology. It's the people, I think it's the people starting DAOs that need help, education, resources. Yeah. And Den comes into that, right? Because it's like Hats and Den, like all of this stack takes a lot of the thinking away, but it doesn't change the fact that we need like to be more thoughtful about why start a DAO, why DAO versus LLC. I have a small request.
Yeah.
Are we introducing ourselves, or are you introducing us? Introduce me as the treasurer of GM DAO. The power user thing is good. Hat steward. And overall DAO maxi.
I also know that I mentioned.
Do you want to advise me?
You can leave that off. Then it gets too long.
I also.
Oh, fair.
All right, guys.
What do I do with this? What do we do with this? Where does it?
Leave it. You just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just,
Oh yeah, you should.
Well,
The podcast bros have arrived.
Come grab a seat. Lots of seats up front for people to sit at.
So
Don't be scared.
Toby's a herding dog, so if you don't sit, he's going to herd you into your
just
seats.
circles around you.
One quick thing too, before we get started with this panel with Jonah and DeFi Beats, our panel after this, which is going to be our last one of the day, is going to be a DAO Hot Ones panel. So if you've all seen the TV show Hot Ones, where participants, partake in some spicy things, we're going to have a panel of 4 people up here, all giving their spicy takes and partaking in spicy things. There's also going to be an on-chain vote during that time. So if you want to get ready for that process, I sent the link through to the MCON Telegram chat earlier today. So you can pull it up there. But if you want to just prep your wallet, make sure you've got it connected on your phone or your laptop, whatever you have with you, and you've got some ETH on base for gas to use there, you'll be all set up to participate in the on-chain voting once that begins after this panel. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started then. Welcome back to Rehash. You guys have both been on Rehash in the past. We have Jonah Erlich, co-founder of Den, who was previously on Rehash in Season 8, Episode 1, which was just from earlier this year in April. And then DeFi Beats, who is treasurer to GM DAO, hat steward, and overall DAO maxi. He was previously on Rehash in Season 7, Episode 1, which aired early this year in January. Would recommend going back and listening to both of their episodes. But today we're going to be talking about DAOs, DAUs, not DAOs, DAOs. So to start off, let's just explain what this panel is all about. Why should more people in crypto focus more of their time on DAOs, DAUs instead of DAOs, DAOs?
Definitely. First off, thanks for having us, Diana. This is really exciting, really fun to be in a room also with a lot of great folks from MCON and have this to start the conversation that we'll be having afterwards. For folks that are not familiar, DAU is a product metric that stands for daily active users, and so most Web 2 products will use a metric along these lines to measure, hey, how often are users using our product? For Den specifically, we actually do monthly active users. It depends on how frequent you actually care about folks taking actions. But we went with this facetious title because we wanted to talk about how do you build products that actually solve people's problems and that folks will actually use and get your head a little bit out of the theoretical and abstract, which can be very important at times, but I wanted to have a way to have spicier takes than anything on the spicy DAO Hot Ones after this.
Yeah, so starting with a spicy take, I
Just diving right on in.
I don't know if I agree with you, Jonah. So go a little bit deeper into why DAUs versus DAOs.
Yeah. So I think the way that I see it, and for those that are unfamiliar, I'm the co-founder of a product called Den. We're an alternative UI for Gnosis Safe, focused on the experience problems that teams specifically have using their Gnosis Safes operating on chain. And the reason that we care about DAUs more or care about that experience more is we very strongly believe there will be a very broad variety of organizations that exist on chain. And you already have this today with centralized teams, with DAOs. A lot of DAOs are just centralized teams in a trench coat as they live today. I can see some folks laughing in the audience because they know exactly what I mean by this. And I think as a product builder, it's not my job to tell people how to organize. I think rather it's to understand what do they actually want to do in the world, how do they want to operate on chain, and build a product that enables them to do that to the best of their ability. And for some folks, that's focusing on only DAOs as that target user. For us, we're very strong believers that there will be a variety of on-chain orgs, so it's serving across those different needs.
So for me, when I hear DAUs, it immediately makes me think of I want the number up. I want as much as possible. I'm stealing this from Scotchpreneur, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like QAUs, quality active users. So what do you think about this idea of, I mean, I'm sure you agree with quality over quantity, but do you feel like you're seeing a like vaporness in the space? Is that what's making you kind of lean in that direction? Yeah.
It's a great question. I love the number go up framing because obviously that's the most important thing in crypto. I think you're right on the quality active users. I think you see this a lot with metrics from a lot of different protocols where they may have, hey, this is the number of transacting wallets. It just happens that 90% of those transacting wallets are bots that are being run by that protocol itself. So I do think the quality part really matters. And I think for a lot of folks, it's a question of what are your objectives with these metrics, right? For us, our objective is to build a better product that more folks actually use on a day-to-day basis and make it as easy to run an organization on-chain as it is to run an organization off-chain. But for those really gameable metrics, sometimes it's really useful. Kevin was talking earlier about gameable metrics with public goods funding. And so I think a lot of it has to go with what are the incentives you actually care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the difference between complex and complicated systems. And also, so just a little bit of background, and maybe my spicy take that ties into this, is I have a master's in organizational psychology. I've started a bunch of companies. I really like getting people together and I was about to say make them do things. Have them do things.
The DAO dictator.
Yeah. And, in the last 3 years, consulting in the space, talking to entrepreneurs, I really think DAOs have a leadership problem. I think thanks to you, thanks to Hats, we're solving a lot of the connective tissue that really allows us to coordinate effectively and trustlessly and permissionlessly. And I'm still not seeing conversations around, what makes a good DAO leader? And so when I hear you say DAUs, I bristle, and I'm happy that I'm bristling because I think the theme of MCON has been a little bit of spice, is that, quality over quantity. And we're in this room of such quality. We've been, speaking with such quality this whole week, and I just want to make sure we keep that front of mind.
What do you think makes a good DAO leader?
Okay, so I'm happy you asked that. So something that happens in the Web 2 space, especially if you're in entrepreneur circles, people who start companies are very particular, in my opinion, of how they categorize themselves. So sometimes you shake someone's hand and you're like, so what do you do? I'm the CEO of such and such. Cool. It's like you and a Fiverr guy. Or it's like you and your best friend. You're the CEO of nothing. So then when I started my company 7 years ago, was really cognizant to never call myself anything with a C in front of it because it was two of us at first. So then I stuck with founder, right? But there are some people who don't like that either. Everyone kind of falls into a different bucket, and I think these are a little bit psychographics of, now I'm answering your question, why are you doing this in the first place, right? I had a boss many, many lifetimes ago who I could just tell that he walked in every day and just liked to see us at our desks, right? To the point where it was a really cool office. There's couches everywhere, dogs everywhere, and we all kind of worked on the couches like this with our laptops, like we were home. This was before COVID and all that stuff, so it was really cool to be acting like you're at home. But then he would get mad that we weren't at our desks. He created this really fun environment. And got mad when he walked in first in the morning and he didn't see a bunch of typewriters going, because he had this idea in his head. He wasn't trying to, in my opinion, he wasn't trying to fill in the blank. He wanted power structure, right? And so I think the first step is to really dissect, why are you starting a DAO? What are you trying to do? And what is necessary for you to go from point A to point B to point C, and who do you have to be and who do you have to link up with in order to get those things set up appropriately? Because just being charismatic, and this happens in all entrepreneurial circles, right? Just being charismatic, just being provocative, just being able to persuade, very important skill set, but not necessarily enough to get 15 people to send a probe into to Saturn.
Yeah, I think there's a great underlying question to everything that you just said, and it's what makes sense to build as a DAO, and for what problems are DAOs really good at solving, and why do we want to do a DAO versus a different type of organization. I personally have like a few thoughts on like what works, what doesn't work. I don't really have a grand theory around this, and I think some people do, but I feel like the general sentiment in the space is that there isn't something concrete that everyone can look at and say, hey, like this is how we should think about this thing. Like I think there's certain things on the protocol level that really work, like the hyperstructures article from Jacob from Zora that kind of talks about like, hey, what is a good protocol? But we don't really have that for what is it good for governing that protocol or assets or some sort of organization. I think that's the deeper question is what sort of organizations are well represented as DAOs? A few things that come to mind to me are things that are highly parallelizable. So for example, one of my kind of most known DAO experiences is I was on the core team for the Constitution DAO. And the marketing for the Constitution DAO, as well as the fundraising for the Constitution DAO, was a highly parallelizable process. Anyone can share the Juicebox link, make their own memes, contribute directly to it. If you look at something like building a product, although folks do that, it's a lot more challenging. And building a product is typically delegated to a smaller group of organization, a smaller organization or group of organizations, and they will be given specific responsibilities around building that product. You see this with a lot of DeFi protocols, actually, where the initial development team will build the protocol, and then they'll launch the token, there'll be a forum, and then for V2, it's not the community talking about, hey, what V2 do we want? It's, hey, X Labs is presenting V2, let's vote on if we deploy this V2. And so it's kind of this funny thing where there are certain benefits to that DAO structure existing, but it's also not fully taking advantage of the organizational structure of the DAO because it's essentially a centralized entity that gets permission from a decentralized entity. And so that's sort of some of the questions I'm asking is what actually works as a DAO? One other example of this, and then I'll stop talking and let you take back over, that I think is really interesting is anything where it's a shared network of sorts or where people are more incentivized to grow the thing faster because they have ownership. So kind of the classic example of a shared network that's under centralized control is ride sharing, right? You have Uber and Lyft, which are these two shared networks, but the drivers don't actually have a say in how that network is managed, how jobs are sent from the person requesting a ride to the person fulfilling the ride. Because the centralized company owns the network, they are able to be rent seekers as part of that network as opposed to most of the value going back to the people performing the actual work. And I do think it's an open question of how challenging is it to build a rideshare network, for example, as a decentralized protocol. There's a ton of problems that go into that, from just the area of safety, right? Is this a driver that I trust to not do something very malicious to me? So anyway, those are some very broad thoughts going at that question of what actually works as a DAO.
Go ahead. It's your podcast.
No. I was just going to jump in and say, I have been wanting to ask this, but going back to your whole thing about quality active users versus, DAOs versus this like QAU concept that you brought up, I'm curious to explore that more and curious to hear like what you see as being quality active users, because like when we talk about DAOs like DAOs being more important or whatever, like you still need those users, and like that is really like still at the core, I think, of any organization. So going back to that, like how are you defining, or Scotchpreneur or whoever is advocating for this QAU concept, like how do you think about that versus like maybe what broadly people think of like DAUs?
My head's going in a bunch of different directions, so bear with me for 2 seconds. 2 things. One, Constitution DAO is what got me into DAOs, so thank you. A wonderful experiment and probably one of the coolest things I did in 2021, so thank you for that. So quality users, this is a problem we all have, right? Every DAO has this problem. No one's doing the thing. They promised this, they didn't do it. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I do think that some of it does fall onto leadership's shoulders. And like I said, I'm building this plane while I'm flying it, but been thinking a lot this week about the design space for DAOs and more buzzwords, skeuomorphic, right? So I think that DAOs are able to change the world for the same reason why crypto changes the world, and we need to both do skeuomorphic and non-skeuomorphic situations, organizational structures. And so one thing I've been playing around with, and this is not my novel idea, I forget who I stole it from though, I do think decentralized is a spectrum, autonomous is a spectrum, and organization is even a spectrum. And I think the design space is this interesting triangle where you can literally tug and turn the slider infinitely in any of these three spectrums, and almost like a color wheel. And when you mix and match them, something new is created at each one of those points. And so what does that have to do with quality users? So again, going back to why the DAO exists in the first place, in some ways, a DAO is like an LLC. It's like the first thing you do when you want to start an on-chain organization. But in other ways, it's a lot more than that. The persons who have this idea that they want to execute do need to think really deeply about the incentive structures and about the why. There's a lot of, in Web 2, there's a lot of easy whys, right? Why start this company? There's a gap in the market, we're going to get lots of money for it, and if you're my employee, I'm going to pay you over $150,000 a year. Those whys are really easy. Why should I show up every day as a designer and hope that you're going to give me something to design, hope that you're going to be happy with it, and hope that you're actually going to fulfill your promise, even though a lot of it is on chain, like hope that I'm going to get the bounty or the reward or the retroactive public good funding that I was promised. And so the reason why I put the onus on the leadership or the starters of the DAO is because I do think we have to think deeply about this. Like we complain so much about, well, there's just no good people in DAOs. DAOs never get anything done. And it's like, doctor, heal thyself. You need to understand that, like, especially like with proto DAOs and at the very beginning, you're building something, and even if you want it to go off and be self-sustaining, you still need to set that mousetrap game appropriately so that it keeps going in circles and circles and circles without you. And I don't think we pay enough attention to that as a space.
I think Jonah, you're actually a good example of a leader who is good at doing the things that you've described a good leader should be good at doing, and one of those is really is finding the quality users. I think that from what I've seen with your work with Den, that you and the Den team are one of the best examples in the space of like actually listening to user feedback, like doing user research, listening to user feedback. So to sort of wrap this up, like what is your best advice for founders out there or any leaders of DAOs, any organization, of how they can actually take the time to understand what their users want and to find those quality users?
Definitely. It's a great question. I think there's a lot of learnings here from the Web 2 way of doing things for just understanding your users, understanding what they want, and how to build those things. I highly recommend a book called The Mom Test. If you haven't heard of it, the idea behind the Mom Test is your mom will never tell you that you have a bad idea. So these are questions you can ask to actually figure out if your idea is good enough without your mom being biased. So highly recommend that, and recommend focusing on problems. Because if you're focused on solutions, you're obsessed with solutions, you may actually miss the underlying thing that folks need to be actually solving. I think, one thing I was thinking about with DeFi Beat's answer here about quality daily active users or quality users and how to get quality people involved is, it really has to do with what your objectives are. Right, and for a lot of organizations, it's growing the organization for the sustainability of the organization. And so what sort of repeatable tasks or non-repeatable roles can you put people in to affect those goals? I think like if we want to take like a really simple kind of like complex systems look at this, the Nouns DAO is a great example of this, where there are very concrete things that the Nouns DAO does that you can judge based on, hey, how is this thing succeeding? Right, the mission of the Nouns DAO is to spread nounishness and make folks more aware of the nouns, right? It's basically a brand, and they're trying to build that brand, and you can actually tell the impact of that with the Nouns Daily Auction. For those unfamiliar, a new noun is created every day, forever. And there's an auction, and whoever wins the auction gets the noun for that day. And so you have a real-time barometer discovering, hey, are the nouns succeeding at spreading nounishness in the world and people's desire to be associated with the nounishness? So I think it all really ties back to, like, what are the direct incentives? What are the problems you're actually trying to solve for? And so, you know, with nouns, their problem, which is a little weird thinking of it from a customer problem perspective, is how do you spread this brand? For us at Den, we see a ton of problems related to on-chain operations. Hey, it's really hard to get people to sign their multi-sig transactions. This sounds trivial to anyone that has not been a signer on a multi-sig, but anyone that has been a signer knows that this is a nightmare, and it is by far the biggest problem we see. It is hard to understand what's actually happening in your transaction. Who is getting paid? Why are they getting paid? Is this DeFi protocol we're depositing into actually doing the thing we want it to do? Have I interacted with a malicious contract or not? And really starting first with those problems and understanding, hey, what are your customers trying to affect in the world? What sort of change are they trying to make? What are they trying to do is the root of actually solving those problems and building something that people want.
I love that framing of like focusing on the problems and not the solutions, because I think so often we see crypto founders come in with this like grand solution of this like cool feature or cool product that they're trying to build, and they skipped over the part about, you know, identifying the problem and seeing what the problems actually are first.
I think there's a lot of great examples here in DeFi specifically. And really what happens a lot in DeFi is people will say, hey, we see this product exists in TradFi, and we're just going to bring it on-chain. And that is totally the wrong approach. And the big reason that that's the wrong approach is in TradFi, there are buyers for these very complex financial products that have a need for them. In DeFi, those buyers do not exist. The reason that RWAs have become so popular over the last few years is because there are buyers that have a problem that need to solve it with RWAs. And specifically, for folks that aren't super deep in RWAs, most RWAs are US Treasury bills. So you're earning 5% yield on the US dollar. And the reason that this is a problem is a lot of organizations, whether that's DAOs or centralized organizations, want to be fluid enough to move on chain like this. Just at the snap, hey, I want to deploy into this opportunity, I want to spend these assets, whatever, whatever. But they could not get access to the, I'm going to use quotes, risk-free rate of the US dollar without going off-chain, which means days, if not longer, of moving between additional fees. And so RWAs solved an actual problem where some of these more complicated DeFi products, there's just not a buyer for those yet. And one day, maybe there will be a buyer for those. And you know, I hope there is, and I believe that we will build a world where those products need to exist. They'll look different than they do in TradFi because the buyers will be different. And that is why so many of these exotic, cutting-edge DeFi protocols have failed, because their customers do not exist yet.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well, we've got to wrap for the sake of time, but if you have any questions for Jonah or DeFi Beats after this, please go up and talk to them. You guys are going to be hanging around the rest of the day? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Awesome, well, let's give them a hand. Oh, wait, tell people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yes, you can find me across platforms, so Twitter, Farcaster Lens at JIERLICH, and Den is at OnChain Den.
And DeFi_Beats on Twitter and Farcaster.
Awesome. Let's give them a hand. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Loved the little back and forth. That was awesome.
I had some
Yeah.
last-minute spice that we didn't have time for.
Guys, we're going to, we have one more panel today, and it's going to be a DAO Top Ones panel with Amy, Spencer, and Disruption Joe. So take a couple of minutes, go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever you need, and then come back. Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Yep.
Why did we do this? Like,
I just want to remind you where the video came from. So that is
Do we have a face side, a side face? Like I'm only good from my camera faces. What do they call that shit? Like what camera face?
Good side?
Just your good side.
good side.
Good side?
Every side is good for you, Joe. You're looking good for every side.
I'm gonna need some more beverage. What is that?
I'm reading this one. This one.
This one.
I'm scared of the hot take, Joe. The one that you said is gonna.
I wonder if this chair. Do I like this chair better?
Should we be closer together?
Yeah, I was thinking like you guys would be like 1 meter from each other on each table, so maybe more convention.
I'm just checking it out real quick. That's a better chair.
We're establishing dominance right now by choosing your chair. You're like, I don't want that chair. That's
Establishing dominance. It's like if you arrive early enough, you get to choose. That's
That sounds like Dallas.
Some beers for us if we need some brand.
Oh my god. Guys, I'm so
I actually didn't drink very much last night. Which was weird for me for saying it.
I loved it. I loved
I should never have bought you that.
Did you bring a towel?
it. That's what started it. We're gonna need to put it out later.
That towel. I did.
Is everyone have a towel?
We gotta take a picture. And then an after picture. Yes.
Why did I say we
Well, I
should
guess
do
we're
this?
on. Well, you're all
I know. I don't
We're on
know
from
why.
all over the place all the way through the whole time.
This is like such a bad idea. He legit brought a towel.
I brought a
Yeah.
towel from my Airbnb.
I said he would. You also have a flight, right?
Yeah, I gotta go and I gotta leave here in like 50 minutes, like an hour.
Okay.
But your flight is
We're
how
all-
long?
My flight is at 4:10.
Okay.
Not 420?
Not 4:20.
So basically, because somebody said to me, Spencer has to leave for a flight at 2. So I'm like, aren't we on a panel at 2?
Yeah, but you said that's
Bad time for the flight.
Yeah, I mean, I already bumped it back like earlier when I didn't realize that this was today. It just didn't look, but I was originally leaving like earlier this morning, but I had to. Hey, buddy, you gonna do this with us?
for real, like a beer is supposed to help with the spicy.
Because it's like the malty hops and yeasty, like it's like bread.
Yeah. Where's the Pepto-Bismol? Why didn't
I'm
we
gonna
bring
put this way. The 4 categories were airdrops, apps versus
That is my
infra,
secret. I coated
retro
my mouth
funding,
with
and our DAO's dead.
Oh, okay. Retro funding. I'll do some good. I'll do some good spice on that one. Our DAO's dead. All right. Well. All right.
Wait.
All right, guys.
Just make sure you're out of like accidental spit distance.
Why am I sitting next to you?
It's just kind of dipping down. Yeah. It's probably not a big deal.
Guys, this is such a bad idea.
Dude. Okay. And if that's good enough for the audio to work, that's great.
Dude. Yep. Yep.
Okay. And
Can I eat a
guess
wing
the
and
only
do
thing
this?
is I need space to eat as
No,
well.
no.
This is a unique scenario.
No, you don't speak while you're eating.
Right.
So
Should I be like right in the mic
Come up.
or no?
Try not to ruin the mic.
Wait, so are we continuously eating the wing?
I'll explain it.
Did you lie to me?
Should
What?
should
No.
we each have like a little plate in front of us or something to put the wing words?
Each of those is for you. So grab one in front of you. There's
Where's
two.
our cold plunge? That'd be actually pretty funny.
All right, guys, we're gonna start our last panel of the day. Bring it in. Grab some front row seats to see the sweat come off Spencer's head.
Oh, God.
He brought a towel. He brought a towel. Where do I put my cheat sheet with all my
From last night.
Where do I put my banger notes?
Come grab a seat. Okay. What?
I'm super nervous.
Yeah. This is heckleable. Yeah, audience participation is welcome. So most of you, all of you probably are familiar with the TV show Hot Ones. We are going to replicate that today while giving our spicy takes about DAOs. So how this is gonna work is we have 4 rounds, so 4 categories that we're all gonna share our spicy take. Each of us is gonna have up to 2 minutes to share a spicy take and sort of explain and persuade the audience. And while we're doing that, you can actually vote on chain, on Joke Race, for who has the spiciest take. And this part is really important because whoever receives the least amount of votes at the very end has a lovely little surprise waiting for them. So please vote for me. I appreciate all of you being here today.
It's an even
If you'd like
spicier
to continue to support the podcast and continue to support content like this, please vote for me so that I'm not dead at the end of this, so that I
It's
can...
called inverse audience capture.
No, but vote for whoever you think has the spiciest take. You can vote multiple times while this is going on. So each round you can cast your votes. You can continuously give your votes, and then at the end I'm gonna pull it up and we're gonna keep track of it.
Are we splitting the fees on all the votes, or is they only going to Rehash?
Yeah, I'm out if I don't get my $13.
Is this sweat equity or is this?
It's sweat equity.
Yeah, we started a union.
Joke Race. So I sent the link through to the MCON Telegram chat. You can find it there. Let me, if somebody has it pulled up, actually, if you could just reshare it again real quick, just to make it easy for everybody.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Respect to the gladiators.
Can we vote?
You can vote actually if you want. If you have your phones out and wallet connected, you can
I don't think
vote.
I could do that while eating wings.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain from voting for myself, but I would greatly appreciate all of you voting. So I've got 4 hot sauces here. We each have a plate of wings in front of us. I've got 4 hot sauces here. They are from Hellfire Detroit, so we're supporting local.
Oh, great. Hellfire.
And we're gonna warm up, okay? So these 3, I've got 3 from Hellfire Detroit, and then I've got Dave's Insanity, which if any of you have had this before, you know how potent it is. Dave's Insanity, we're saving for...
Why?
We're saving this one for the ultimate loser of this contest. So this is a lovely surprise we have for everybody, okay?
You said the ultimate loser. It was like...
I didn't... Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the group. The first one we've got is a poblano chili pepper with Scoville rating of 1,000 to 2,000 units, which is pretty low. It's rated as the bottom end of mild, like the low end of mild. And then the next one we have is jalapeno chili pepper from Hellfire Detroit. This one has Scoville rating of 2,500 to 8,000 units. Okay, so we're bumping it up a bit. This one is rated as hot. And then we have a manzana chili pepper from Hellfire Detroit with Scoville rating of 15,000 to 30,000 units. This one is also rated as hot, but higher up in the hot spectrum. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna have a nice little meal together while sampling these hot sauces. So feel free to open up your meals. I hope it looks satisfying. We've got beer, water. Some people brought their own milk with them. Some people brought a towel with them, so we've got props here and a napkin.
take a napkin too.
Yum.
How does this look? Does it look good to everybody?
Tasty.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna open up this first one to get us warmed up. This is the lowest Scoville rating.
Can we make sure given that we've already made this mistake to participate, can we just lean into it? Can we get like a before picture and then just really embarrassing after pictures?
Actually, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Would somebody mind just smiles? Everybody happy right now?
Yeah, we're happy now.
I'm trying to pretend I'm happy. Dude, I think I look scared.
Your eyes are already glazed over.
Is it happy?
The hot
No,
sauce,
that's
the hot sauce
I'm
can sense your
preemptively
fear.
crying.
Yeah, I think you're crying already.
Yeah, I'm
Are you
preemptively-
actually, can you make yourself cry? Is that what you're doing right now?
What?
Are you making yourself cry to get sympathy from the crowd?
Who would do that?
It's not
What
a
a
good idea to bite your
manipulative
tongue with
action.
hot sauce.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So for this first round, I'm gonna pour a little bit of this onto my plate so I can sample this, and I'm gonna pass it down and have everybody pour a little bit onto your wing. And the first round, we are category is airdrops. Airdrop farmers. Do we think airdrop farmers are good or bad? And we're all gonna share spicy takes. So I can kick us off this round, and then each round we'll just go down the line and have somebody else try it. Okay, so let's take a bite of our wing first and see how this tastes.
We weren't gonna eat any of these.
It's tasty.
It is
Pretty
tasty.
good.
That's good.
I think Miles is accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the assessment from the other table?
It's pretty good, actually.
Toby, are you
It's good, right?
gonna eat the spiciness too? No. Okay.
Okay.
It's
so
like
here's
zero
my-
Scoville.
Everyone doing okay so far? If you're not, then you're you're in trouble. NGMI for sure. Okay, so I'll kick this off, and I'll give my 2-minute spicy take about airdrop farmers. Think about what I'm going to say. So my take is that airdrop farmers are good. And the reason why is airdrop farmers are just like regular farmers. We need regular farmers in order to survive. Whether you want to be a farmer or not, you have to admit that we need them to survive. So in that sense, they're good. The real question we should be asking is not whether airdrop farmers are good or bad. It's where are the governance subsidies? Next.
What's the meme where there's like some guys like I hate you, or you're my biggest enemy, or like you're doing all these terrible things, and the guy in response is like, I don't think about you at all. Sorry? Okay, yeah, thank you. We're mad to do this. Airdrop farmers are just NPCs. They're like background radiation. If we are worried about them, it's because we have designed horrible systems that don't take into account the reality of the physics in the universe, or the social dynamics in the world. So anybody who's complaining about airdrop farmers is a shit systems designer.
No. All right. First, I think airdrop farmers are the best thing that's happened to the ecosystem, hands down. And the thing is, you have to distinguish between an airdrop farmer and a Sybil attack, right? So a Sybil attack's when one person goes and makes many accounts and farms with many accounts. That action is bad. However, if you got into this at the beginning and didn't hear something about how this is for the unbanked and the third world and people who really need access to this, like, I don't know what rock you've been under. And if like, who do you think the airdrop farmers are? They're people that the money actually matters to. And we're trying to act like they're awful people for doing this farming, you know? Like, distinguish between the bad actors, the Sybil farmers who are making a bunch of counts, and the people we really want. And it's on us, if we're two shit designers, to make a second application in all of crypto that those people can use. So airdrop farming is actually doing a great job of it. The government subsidies are there. Our Arbitrum, I know, has put almost 200 million in liquidity or user incentives in the last, a year. You know, Avalanche had a $500 million program. Polygon had a $250 million program. There's plenty of subsidies out there. Why are we getting mad that it's working to acquire new users and we haven't figured out how to keep them because nobody in crypto cares about retention?
All right. Before I start, I promised Drake I would have a disclaimer that my views are my own, not
Also, before Amy starts, can I just say, we never introduced ourselves. Well, you know, Spencer was just here and introduced himself, but go ahead, introduce yourself again.
Hi, I'm Spencer, and my opinions are my own. I do not represent any associated groups that I'm a part of.
Joe, who are you?
I'm Disruption Joe on the Twitter, and my views represent anybody I've ever worked for before and all tokens that I hold, which is a lot, including Boop. If you don't know what Boop is, look it up, buy some so you can understand.
Okay, then Amy.
Financial advice.
Yeah.
Are you just airdrop farming right now?
Greatest thing to happen in the ecosystem. That's the wing face.
I'm Amy, and I think this is probably the worst idea I had. I gave this idea to Diana.
This for anyone here who ends up crying or sweating or in the hospital, just know that this is happening right now because of Amy.
Yeah.
Amy DM'd me, and we were working on a panel for her. We were going to talk about metrics, actually, which is like so opposite of what we're doing now. And she goes, "What if we do a Hot Ones panel? Ha 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 ha, JK." And I respond and I go, "Oh yeah. You don't throw crazy ideas at me and expect me not to take them."
Well, it was
everybody
pitching.
who knows Diana knows that.
Yeah.
It was pitching for you guys, and then I got looped in, which is unfortunate. Yeah.
We were discussing your panel, though.
Oh, yeah, I folded on that panel, but okay, fair enough.
Okay, let's hear your take about airdrop farming.
Okay, so I actually think airdrop farmers are they're the only one, a huge group of people that do a lot of the understanding of how something works. Like, they read the docs, they're asking questions on the forum, because they're really trying to do that farm. And I actually think they're more educated on like how something works than a normal like contributor who just like pops in and wants to be told how something works. So that's my hot take.
So all around, airdrop farming is good. Okay, end of round one.
Never said that.
We're at the end of round one. I'm just gonna see where we are with the votes. So, refreshing. In first place, wow, myself, with 60 votes.
How did that happen?
Thank you.
Collusion.
Thank you. Please continue doing what you've been doing. In second place, we have Spencer with 27 votes. Third place, we have Joe with 22 votes. And fourth place, we have Amy with 20 votes.
Man.
It's tight. It's tight.
It is tight.
Except for the collusion, it's tight.
It is tight.
Yeah.
It's just they went in the order that we spoke, so I think people are just dripping votes in the order that we're speaking.
Should we reverse it for the next question?
We're gonna start with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Start with you, and then start with Joe. And then
All right.
me. So for the next one, we're gonna sample is the jalapeno chili pepper.
Oh, fuck.
This is Scoville rating 2,500 to 8,000 units. So we're stepping it up a little bit from the last one. Oh, nice.
Okay, let's spread that out a little bit.
I really like Joe's commitment. It's like he wants it. He wants it. He wants this spice.
Amy, you're not even dumping it on your chicken.
Oh, I thought we just, all right.
They're dipping.
Oh, they're
We've
dipping.
been
No, I'm
dipping.
doing both.
He's,
Oh.
yeah,
Oh.
to be fair, he's
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess that's okay.
That's hotter.
You ready?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Oh. Pretty good. Not too bad.
Tasty.
How
Yeah.
are you guys doing down there?
I'm just thinking about something sad.
I'm all right.
My grandfather passed away 10 years ago.
Amy, how are we doing?
It's all right.
It's okay. It's okay.
Feel free to, pass it around. Get yourself some more hot sauce too.
Yeah, get in there, Joe. Yeah.
All right, I'll take a little bit more.
There's
I think
a
this
mild
one's
one.
pretty good.
Actually, taste-wise, it's pretty
Taste-wise,
good.
do we like
It's pretty
the
good.
first
Yeah,
one or
shout
the
out to
second one
Hellfire,
better?
yeah.
I think they're both pretty good, but this one is tasty, a little tastier.
Okay.
All right, yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. Second round. The topic is apps versus infra. Big debate out there about apps versus infra. Which one's more important? So, let's hear it. We're gonna start with Spencer this time.
Okay, I'm trying to take my very mid take and spice it up a little bit. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm an app developer, and infra is more important. We can't do anything as app developers unless the infra is there. And yes, of course, we need feedback loops and the ability to build the network effects of infra to fund it and make it more valuable over time. But it's infra developers that make this all go. It was infra developers that had the original vision to build the foundation, the substrate of what we're all, or why we're all here. But okay, all right, let's make this. Okay, it's not infra versus apps. It's dumbass, misaligned incentive VCs that are the problem, that only are looking out for their short-term books rather than their long-term bags, which would be much, much fatter if they were better aligned with the progress of humanity and fully took advantage or took into account the two-sided or multiple-sided marketplace of apps and infra.
If there's any VCs out there, talk to Spencer. They're raising around for hats right now.
Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
These views represent his own and not hats.
All right. I think crypto's full of stupid dichotomies, right? And this is another one of those dichotomies because, infra, if you think of it as we're building out a city, is the roads, the plumbing, and so forth. Obviously, you need this, right? But the apps is cool shit to do in the city, right? So if there was absolutely nothing to do, would you live in a city just because the roads are good and the electric works and the plumbing's good? Absolutely not, right? So I'm going to bring this back to the retention thing because this is what really pisses me off overall, is that I can talk to 10 crypto founders and I'd be willing to put $1,000 bet every time of random sample of 10 founders that they have no clue what the natural frequency that their users use their product, what their retention rate is, what their actual activation moment is, where people become retained rather than just a straight login, and what the ratios are of weekly active users out of their monthly active users, or daily active users out of their weekly, which is what it takes to drive adoption and a data-driven growth program. I've not seen anybody in crypto do that. The app layer is not going to win until we start thinking about retention. So let's actually do growth work and retention work instead of just hoping like miracles happen from throwing stripper parties. And I'm not against the stripper parties. I'm fine with it.
Keep going.
That's it.
That's 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes.
That's my take.
Okay.
That's 2 minutes.
I want him to expound on the stripper parties.
We can talk about that. We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
I'm actually the reverse side of Spencer's. So I think we allocate too much, VCs allocate too much funding to infra, and app developers are actually the ones that are going to users, doing research. Jonah, vote for me. Like going and actually talking to what needs to be built, and infra is kind of taking all the spotlight. It's too much attention, and then the developers have a hard time just like building building on the decisions of the infra that wasn't led by the user focus. So that's I don't know that that's hot take, to be honest. I think that's
not a bad strategy, pandering to the audience for those votes. All right. So my spicy take about apps versus infra is I agree with Joe that the dichotomies that we have in this space are really, really domeless and just, brain rot. But what I think is important isn't so much retention like what Joe talked about. The way I think about this is, I'm always out in the mountains, with my dog. And I think about like the apps as the cool experiences you have along the way, the cool views you get when you go on hikes, the wildlife sightings that you can have, and then the infra is like the trails that are paved, right? So it's like same analogy as like the city and the storefront analogy. Which one is more important? The most important thing when I'm out there to me is the fact that I'm out there with my dog, with my husband, with my friends. It's the company you keep. This is what we should be asking ourselves, is it's all about the people you're with and the vibes. That's what matters the most. Vibes.
Wait, so is vibes in infra or apps?
Could be in either one. We just need the vibes.
Okay, I'm going to say it if she wins.
We have a question from the audience.
Can we do a community spicy take?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Come up here.
I have a spicy take on
No,
this.
you can't say anything unless you have.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Okay, what we got?
Scoville too.
I'll
just pour it down
my hand.
In the hand, not the finger.
Okay, now you can
Why
speak.
is nobody else lining up?
Please.
They're both critically important, but infra is way more important because these mid apps that are not able to do what we really want to do, these apps coming out, there's good ones, but don't give me another boring ass borrow lender. Like, let's make something new that's interesting. The infra is not there to support it yet. The apps do drive the innovation in the infra. That's why they're critically important, but the infra needs to get way better before we have the apps that are going to be really interesting. So we need to develop infra.
How do you know where to put a road if you don't know where the stadium's going to be?
They're both important to go together.
You got to figure out like what people want to do and build infra to support that.
The apps are bad because infra builders.
Wait. If you want to speak, you gotta participate. Okay?
Lick
Right.
It's a lick.
If your eyes aren't blue yet, you can't.
Okay, now you may speak. Guys, come speak into the mic.
The apps are bad because it's the infra builders building the apps, and they're spending so much time on the actual infrastructure that there's not enough focus on the app layer. If we look at the history of a lot of other internet technologies, the apps are what caused the invention of the infrastructure. MapReduce was invented because Google needed a way to bulk process massive pieces of data. Pretty much every other piece of internet infrastructure, with the exception of things that the government funded in the very, very early days, were driven by app builders that had a specific problem that they needed to solve.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. I like this community thing we got going on. I like that rule. If you want to come up and speak in a future round, please. You just have to engage in. Well, now we're moving up to Scoville.
Yeah, you can't go backwards in spice.
No, it has to be whatever spice is of that round. Okay.
Scoville's up only.
It is up only, just like crypto.
What's
so
this
at
next
the
one?
end of round 2, this is where the ratings stand. First place, we have Amy with 100 votes. Wow. Second place, we have myself with 95 votes. Third place, we have Joe with 85 votes. And then fourth place, we have Spencer with 72 votes.
You really want to see me sweat? Okay, all right.
I mean, you did bring a towel.
I did bring a towel.
And he brought the beers. So if
Yeah, and he brought the beers.
And the
most
milk?
prepared.
And the milk.
The milk.
I didn't bring the milk.
No, that was Amy.
Yeah, it was me.
Okay, so round 3, we have, oh man. We're going from 2,500 Scoville up to 15,000. This one's 15,000 to 30,000 Scoville. Am I supposed to shake this, by the way, or? Yeah. Make sure it's evenly distributed.
Yep.
What flavor is that?
Satan's ball sweat.
Oh, that's coming.
Get in there. Get in there, Joe. Yeah.
Why?
All right, okay.
You're just
That's hot.
disrupting. Here and there.
I don't know if I like your strategy of mixing them together so that we can't tell that you're eating the mild one.
But it's also on the wing itself already. I hate my life.
At least we're in it together. Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel better.
How are you feeling?
I'm doing okay.
You're not sweating yet.
I haven't eaten this one yet, though.
Oh.
That's why I was training all week. I can do this.
Pretty good.
Spicy.
These are
They're
good
pretty
hot sauces.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, other than the uncontrollably crying and sweating, it's fine.
You were crying before we even started. Sympathy votes. Don't fall for it, guys.
Don't fall for it. He's playing you.
Yeah, he's playing a game.
He's an airdropper.
He's an airdrop farmer.
What's our next one?
Next round category is retro funding. Is Kevin still here?
Guys, are these lights bright or what?
Yeah, that it builds.
Yeah.
Retro funding. What do we think about retro funding? Starting with Joe this time.
Hey, everybody. I'm doing this cool thing where I pay out people grants and then never look at it again to see if they did anything. Oh, that turns out to be a really bad idea. Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll have them do some work and then we'll pay them. Like, you mean paychecks? Great invention. Great fucking invention. I think it's both exploitative, exclusionary, and also, like, extraordinarily, like, simple. Like, the cool things that are happening around it are all around the data, which could then be applied for pre or after funding. It's not retro funding that's like innovative or cool at all. It's figuring out how to actually get outcomes, which includes funding things, assessing them, and then right sizing afterwards. It's not the before funding, it's not the after, it's the whole thing. Right, so retro funding as a fad is just, I guess, a fun word or something, but I'll keep calling it paychecks. I think it's stupid.
Okay.
A lot of innovation going on it, though, and cool people working on it. Fuck, I'm too nice. Too nice.
I like it. Everyone has a disclaimer at the end. But
Yeah.
That's not what we really think. Okay, this is slightly controversial because I am in OP Collective, Citizens House. We're in the Citizens House. So starting off there, I actually think retro funding has created this dynamic where people expect funding for everything they do now. And so, and this has happened in multiple occasions where people come to me and say, hey, I want to get paid now for all this work. There was never a promise of anything, like genuinely. And I just feel like, A, from the like company's perspective, if people are coming up to you for retro funding, it means you haven't set up a good compensation. Like you haven't set up a good contributor compensation rewards program in the first place. Because now it's too late. People just coming back too late. And then from the other side, like you can't, if you just keep expecting, if you're there for the rewards and you're just like, I'm here to like get money at the end, like maybe you shouldn't be in that organization. Like maybe you're there for the wrong reasons. So
it sounds like paychecks with a fun lottery component too. Like you don't know if you're getting it.
Yeah, people like that. People like that. So that's my take.
How's your tongue?
Okay. How are you doing?
Hi.
Joe, you got to make sure Amy's actually eating over there.
She took a bite.
He saw me.
And also, she's kind of like shaking when people aren't looking.
I am, yeah.
No.
So Joe's crying, Amy's seizing. Spencer's got a towel hat.
Yeah, become a Saudi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Wow.
No, I'm suffering. I'm dying inside. Please cast votes for me so that I don't have to. Don't kill me. You guys, don't kill me off after this. If you promise not to kill me off after this, I promise to do this again at DevCon.
Oh, okay.
How do we compete with that? Okay.
Also, I will just say that the takes I'm giving now do not represent my own views.
Wait.
They represent trying to win this contest.
Ooh.
So here's my hot take about retro funding. If people want to do free work and contribute to you for free and give you free marketing, take it. Why would you pay them after the fact? You already got it for free.
That is spicy.
You want some more rings?
Okay, can I do two?
If you fit it under 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I say this with lots of love and respect for the people in the optimism community and my fellow badge holders, but none of them fucking understand what retro funding is all about. Retro funding is all about creating economic bandwidth to make public goods or ecosystem goods or goods that are not typically marketable in a traditional customer pays for the good kind of model. Retro funding is all about making those investable by investors. If we are going to reject or reduce the amount of retro funding that VC-backed projects are getting, then we are totally fucking up the beautiful future that we could possibly build with these amazing new mechanisms. So tell all your badge holder friends. That's number one. Do I have time?
Yeah, go.
Number two, I don't know if it's going to work.
Anyone from the audience want to come partake in this spice and share their take? Anyone itching to do that?
This one's pretty spicy, so.
Anybody want to lick Satan's balls?
All right, Nick,
Can I quickly propose that we have to all now take an additional retroactive spice?
I already did the work. I'm just taking it.
How spicy is it?
15,000 to 30,000 Scoville units.
Do you,
Don't
put your mouth on it.
Do you want it on
Dump
some
it on
wing?
people's hands.
Can you give me like a green bean?
Yeah.
Here's a wing.
Here, dip a green bean. Here, we'll dip a green bean for you.
That's a spicy one.
All right, feed it to him. Feed it to him.
Shit. It's gonna build. Let it build on you.
Yeah, it stays there.
Actually,
it just doesn't go away.
I'll join you on that. Okay. Let's do it. Is this the one?
That kind of that kind of looks good.
It's not that bad.
All right.
Wait for it.
Okay, my spicy
It's gonna
take.
hit him like 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Spicy take is that the whole reason that we're building Web3 in the first place is to create a new economy and determining the right ways to distribute value to the people who created the value is like the essence of solving that problem. And retro funding does that really effectively because you have a lot more data, but it's not perfect. But this is largely like a very advantageous way for the organizations that are giving out the funding. It's not really, it doesn't really work for the people who should receive the funding. Like if you don't have any commitment from the organization that you're going to get this money, then you can't really commit to doing work, and that's not a way that the economy is going to function. So we have to do a lot more work to get people money in advance of getting their work done.
Yeah, that's why we need to allow them to take investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not spicy? That was your assessment of this? Not too spicy?
The sauce and the take is all not spicy.
Okay. Okay.
That's a spicy take.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay, end of
That
this
hurts
round.
more than the wing.
End of this round, I'm gonna see where the rankings stand. Okay, refresh.
Yeah,
How many votes are there to get like?
There's unlimited votes. Yeah. Okay, so first place currently is Spencer
Wow.
with 131 votes. Second place, we have Amy with 120 votes.
Ooh, it's close.
In third place, we have Joe with 115 votes. Oh, tied, actually.
Tied.
Joe and I are tied for third place with 115 votes.
Third place,
It's
both
cl- it's-
fourth place.
That's
Okay, it's close.
cumulative.
close.
That's
It's really
altogether.
close. Yeah, it's cumulative.
Man.
So our final round, what we're going to do is we're going to mix these three together because we're saving the good one,
Okay, now I'm really.
Dave's Insanity, for the ultimate loser. So we're going to mix all three of these together.
Can we just do the hottest one again?
Yeah, you can do the hottest one again, yeah. I'm going to do that, actually.
Diana, don't eat together. Take a bite and then give your take. And then you go down the road. So as soon as you're done, then you give your take. Switch it up.
Okay, yeah. So this time we're starting with Amy. And our last category topic for this is, are DAOs dead?
What am I gonna say?
All right, so Amy, as soon as you've taken a bite of the hot sauce, feel free to start speaking.
Right. So I think DAOs are not dead, they are dying. So, why are you laughing at me? And I think they're dying because essentially the group of people that are in each of these big DAOs are actually just the same. So they're just moving from one DAO to DAO, and so it becomes like an attention grab. And so one new one spins up with a ton of funding, ton of things to give away. People move to that one and then move to that one. So all these DAOs are getting abandoned. So I think DAOs are dying because we have this like competitive, extractive mindset, and we should be collaborating more together.
Okay, so I'm going to take a bite and then give my take.
Let's hear it.
It's definitely different when you have to start speaking right after you do
exactly.
that. So my spicy take, can I drink water or do I just have to go? Okay.
Water after.
Okay. My spicy take about, it's like in my throat, about if DAOs are dead. DAOs are not dead, but they're not alive either. They're like zombies. Exactly. You guys get it. They're zombies. And the thing that we have to be careful about is the zombie apocalypse. So, like zombies that feed on other people, human brains and body parts, we have to beware of DAOs that are going to feed on other DAOs and take them down with them. So we're at a critical point right now where DAOs can go, become super alive or they can become super dead. And we just need to... This is why we're all here, right, at MCON. We're like talking about DAOs, we're rethinking it, we're building the future, the new civilization, as Trake calls it. And this is a critical point. So we just need to make sure that we do the right things now so that DAOs do not become fully and permanently dead. I might need a beer. Is there?
Yeah, there's beer. The beer's sweating too.
Does it? Can you? Can it borrow your towel?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not a napkin. Okay.
It's okay. You keep it.
Don't touch your eyes.
I know. I've been.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like getting heartburn too.
I know.
DAOs aren't dead because they were never alive to begin with. There are not.
There is a follow-on.
Yeah, that's not it. I'm just
yeah.
processing the Scovilles. DAOs aren't dead because they were never alive to begin with, or they're not alive yet. We haven't actually created, for the most part, real DAOs. There are an exceedingly small number of actual DAOs. I could go on for more than 2 minutes, but also, DAOs are dead. Decentralized autonomous organizations are dead. Long live capture-resistant organizations.
I feel like the spice was like reaching your brain throughout that.
Yeah.
All right.
Osmosis.
Yeah.
Who's sweating?
Do you need to borrow Spencer's towel?
It only has a little bit of hot sauce on it.
No, don't do it. Yeah.
I just need a napkin towel.
Oh, there's
Do you have
nothing.
more napkins?
Damn it. That's fucking spicy. It's on my whole mouth, like the outside of my lips. I didn't eat it with the outside of my lips.
Zoom in
Anyway.
to Joe's face if you guys can get a photo of him.
Please
It's
don't.
The tears are starting to drip down.
This doesn't get posted online anywhere, right?
No,
Okay.
it's just live.
Nowhere, yeah. This is a safe space.
Oh, Jesus. All right. DAOs as like a noun is just a stupid proposition. You're not in a DAO. You're participating in decentralized and autonomous organizing. And this has been going on since like the beginning of like civilization, right? If you're in business, like a business owner, you've experienced this before when contracting with other businesses. The nations, the way nation states interact is very much decentralized, and they have autonomy in how they act. What we're actually doing is we've got this new invention that creates this digital agreement that allows for hard rights on property ownership that aren't dependent on the nation state, right? It depends on the collective of all of us who agree. With those hard property rights, we want to take the gift of democracy, that is the right to voice or exit, and make sure we're getting our fair share in the voice side, and that when we exit, we get to keep our fair share in the property side, right? So are DAOs alive or dead? I don't know. Is running alive or dead? Like, is a verb alive or dead? You're participating in decentralized and autonomous organizing, and that's never going away.
All right, last call for votes. Gonna shut it down in 60 seconds. So get your votes in. Any final votes? Oh, yes, community. Yeah. This will buy you guys more time to vote.
Lick the insanity.
Do you want a green bean?
Do you want to mix it up?
Green bean's pretty good with it.
He's like, I don't have a spicy take. I just want to lick some sauce.
Oh, you're mixing all of them.
What other one am I missing? What other one?
This one.
Can I have the spicy one?
That's the mob one.
We're gonna do this.
Come in.
Not bad.
The audience
Okay.
can see the back of my head.
My spicy take is that dudes arguing online is very much alive and well. I think you guys got it all mixed up over here. DAO stands for dudes arguing online, and that is still happening. I promise you guys, that is still happening. So, DAOs are dead. but long-lived DAOs. And another thing, Owocki, #1 sweater gaming crypto.
Wow. That was like a great
Light
ad.
Piglet, everybody. Thank you.
His
Anyone else have a
opinion is
community-
representative of Owocki.
Yeah, Owocki. We're going Owocki now.
Owocki. Is that like a Gucci? Yeah, like a Gucci. Owocki.
Any final community takes?
Owocki has a lot of
Or-
cashy.
Owocki.
A lot of
No,
cultural cashy.
no brave souls out there. All right. So I am doing one final refresh.
Okay.
On this. Oh, people are still sending votes in. Okay. Doing one final refresh, and then we are going to see where the standings are. So, in first place, drum roll, please. Spencer Graham with 152
That
votes.
wasn't spicy.
But that.
I have also been given this very limited edition MCON hat. Do you already have this, by the way?
Actually, no. That's
So
embarrassing.
I'm going to award you this hat for winning
Thank you
the
so much.
Hot Ones competition.
Oh my God, did Spencer win a hat?
That's coming with it?
Yeah.
I got a Peppa? Yes. Peppa. Fuck yeah.
Wait, I will say I would have loved to see Spencer on the flight, just sweating. He's got a flight right after.
He has a
Sweating,
flight right out. He's
tears.
got to leave in 2 minutes, so at least you've got that.
Sir,
Okay,
are you on
second
drugs?
place. In second place, drum roll, please. Second place is myself with 130 votes. Thank you. We will run it back and do this again at DevCon, so stay tuned for that.
Oh my God.
Now, for the moment of truth.
Oh no. No. Oh no.
And just as a reminder, the loser of this is going to sample our Dave's Insanity hot sauce.
I'm going to do it with which I'm going to do it with you.
Dude, I can't.
That's right. Amen. Wow. See, it's all about the
15-hour
people and the
flight. What if it
vibes, and you guys brought it. Third place, we have, drum roll please,
Oh man.
Disruption Joe. Which means,
And I'm not doing it with you guys. No.
which means Amy will be
Guys, I
sampling.
have a 15-hour flight.
I'll do it with you.
How close is your seat to the bathroom?
Yeah.
I'll do it with you, Amy.
I fucking hate spicy food.
No good idea goes unpunished.
Here's the milk.
Okay, I'm pouring some for myself. I'm gonna do this with you.
All right. Fine, I'll do it. How many Scovilles is this?
This is like off the Scoville charts.
Oh my God. No.
It just says insane.
No.
My recommendation is just get like one drop.
I'm going to just do it on my, like,
Oh, that's smart, yeah. If anyone else would like to come partake with Amy and with all of us, feel free to come up here.
I like the commodity.
Here, I'll
Get in
pour
it. Get
some.
in here. Wait, it's,
Here, Amy, I'll pour
wait.
some. Amy, I'll pour some on here, and then people can just dip it.
hot sauce shots for everybody.
Yeah,
Talking some shit, so I'm back.
yeah.
But I need a green bean.
Grab a green bean, and then we've got a plate
my
here.
alarm to go to the airport is going off.
All right.
This here? Or how much do you guys take?
Okay, I'm already sweating like a
Getting in there.
motherfucker.
How much?
Oh God.
That much.
That much?
That's what I'm doing.
I'm doing
not, like,
doing just a little pinky.
Rubbing it around and then cheers.
All right, let's do this together, okay? Cheers, guys. Cheers.
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 Sows.
To crows.
Oh, fuck.
Oh my God.
That's hot.
Not bad. That's hot, but it's not that bad. Definitely way better than.
I'm just kidding. I thought that was funny.
It was. That is true. Okay.
Oh, wow.
But it's not.
Do you want some milk? It really does help.
It's not good. It's not good.
Okay, we need after photo. Don't wipe the milk off before the after photo.
After photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
All right. Fake smiles, everybody. Fake smiles. Come on.
Nice. Nice. Hell yeah, dude.
And you.
Scoville.
Avocache.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for partaking. Amy, thank you for the great idea to do this. I definitely want to do this again at DEF CON. So if you're gonna be there, let's run it back.
Do Thai food?
Yes,
Thai spice?
spicy Thai at DEF CON.
Spicy Thai takes.
Thank you everybody for coming to our live podcast show. I'm gonna make a quick announcement. So this wraps up the podcast portion of our event today.
You want some milk?
We have this space.
I think I'm okay.
Thank you. Just two more minutes. This wraps up our podcast portion of today. We do have the space until 3 or 4 p.m., so feel free to hang around. Sinjin is over there with his amazing t-shirts, and he's got Rehash stencils that he can put on a t-shirt of your choice. Sorry, I'm still having trouble speaking. I'll be around. Everybody be around. Please mix and mingle. I'm going to bring these hot sauces back there with the food, so if you want to try some of these, please feel free. All of these were actually very good, except for maybe Dave's insanity, which is somehow getting hotter and hotter.
It gets worse, yeah.
Right now. What else do I have? What other announcements? Go talk to Andy back there from Last. Last sponsored this event for us. They made this happen. He's got merch back there. Grab all the merch, please, and talk to him about Last. And have a good time. Vibe out. Thank you all so much for being here. This is like, you guys blew me away. I was not expecting this many people. So I really, truly appreciate all of you. Really do. And collect an on-chain podcast so that you can vote on guests for future seasons. My brain is no longer working because the spice is reaching it. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, I gotta run. I gotta go.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I told you I sweat.